You're listening to the Devil Dog Talk Show.
This show contains explicit material and is recommended for ages 18 and older for mature audiences only. But hey, it's the internet.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Devil Dog Talk Show. Today we have Jill Marcos, and we've kind of been wrapping it about. I don't know where to edit this or where to put things right now so far. My director brain's going, Joey, why didn't you just stay on track? You just do the intro and then you start talking. Do the intro, then start talking. Anyway, Jill, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing beautifully. I'm so excited to be on your show. Like I said, I've been watching the last few episodes, especially, and I get into the conversations that you have. You're just a gifted conversationalist. So I'm so lucky to be here. Yeah,
I'm lucky you showed up. And thank you for coming on. You know, that's one of the most important things. I just love to share people that have great, not just stories, but great characters and personalities. And like your biggest question, how do I find guests? It's I reach out, I be who I am, and I find that common thread and I pull it. And as soon as we start pulling it, you hit it already, like so many markers. Hey, my, pilots, my family, this, what is Top Gun? Who is in this? What's a Navy, Air Force, which one? And before, right, it's this just masterful like approach of back in the day where people used to like talking about things other than, right, like a title.
right.
That's great. We know the storyline. A journalist talking with a podcaster. Yay. What does that mean? Why does everybody, well, we're going to talk about journalism. We're talking about podcasting. Like people are so regimented. I'm just calm down, guys.
Yeah. And that's another thing about just journalism in general, where there's these stiff conversations that are overly rehearsed and overly produced. And a lot of the best stuff on the internet now, with the emergence and the explosion of podcasting, I think people have a hunger for that. They want to hear just the honest conversation. Like, you didn't give me questions ahead of time to prepare myself. It was more just kind of like, hey, I want to get to know you, but we're just going to talk,
Yep.
And that's what makes it, that I think that space is growing so significantly because people have a hunger for that.
Yep. People are starving like for just genuine, authentic connection where there's that rapport establishment, right? Like I could sit here and I could talk about guests that I've shot out, like to set them up, right? Like bigger names, whatever, different names, I should say. But it's the ones that I find the most rigid, the ones where like, well, do you have any outline? Dude, are you a goddamn showrunner? Like, what is going? Why do you need an outline? Oh, I need a line by line, and you need to know he needs to know all the questions. Like, so what you're saying is like the character that you have out and about in the world is so
Right.
compartmentalized that the individual speaking publicly is incapable of guiding a typical conversation.
Well, it's a fear of the truth, right? It's a fear of what if you don't over rehearse, and there's no other reason I can think of is I guess unless you don't want to sound dumb, like, oh, I should probably have something prepared so I can have something to say. But I think a lot of cases people are afraid of what's going to come out, and if you rehearse it and you kind of keep that in place, and I get it because the internet is forever, and if you say something and you can't really take it back, I understand that. But then again, there's also like, okay, so I make a mistake or I say something that was, a little bit too truthful. I'm not necessarily, a lot of people do choose to get offended by things today too. So that doesn't help. But at the same time, being courageous, I think, is what's called for. Just be courageous and just say what you think. You don't have to be outspoken and in people's faces, but just show up and have a dialogue. So that's why your show I'm such a huge fan of.
Thank you so much. I love that. I am so grateful for that because I'll tell you what, sometimes people just don't get it. And I'm like, how do you not get it? It's very simple. I very outspoken. I articulate excruciatingly well. In fact, too bad. It's too good because everybody goes, so you say you're mentally retarded and have disabilities, but you sound like a 12th grade reading level when everybody else is at 4th grade. So I don't get it. And I'm like, yeah, the statistics are that our high school kids are graduating with the reading level of about a 4th grade. And I'm like, oh, so maybe that's the problem.
Don't they say that brilliance borders on insanity? Or is that just something my dad used to say? Doesn't brilliance border on insanity, though? I mean, there's a fine line between having a kind of mental, I don't know, I don't want to say deficiency because it's not, but how about, what do they call it? Divergence,
Yeah.
neurodivergence. Like there's a big difference between that and being brilliant, because
Yeah.
that's like where that breakthrough, that's the only place that breakthrough could grow, right, is in this like just this space that's more unique and unhindered by kind of that regular box, you
Yeah.
know.
And I think that's what really started podcasting, was people wanting to connect with something more deep, not just topical. Don't get me wrong, you still got your shows like all the famous guys, and they're great, and I enjoy them every very now and again. But what I mean by that, it's just it used to be a passion project, right, where people used podcasting as the vehicle to connect, not
Yeah.
as this thing and the commodity, right? Which is fine. The podcasting world it makes money, but it's like, well, if everybody's perception is you make money doing this because look how long you've been doing it, I go, well, that's possible. The other possibility is I do it because I love serving my God, Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, right? Holy Spirit, amen. And I love being able to connect with people like you, people that typically, like you said, don't find themselves as interesting as you are. But again, like immediately I'm learning about you, right? You're into journalism. Your father was a pilot.
My grandfather was a pilot in the Navy, and then my uncle is a pilot for private jets. The net jets that flies around, and they're the littler jets. And then my sister's husband, he started in the Air Force, and now he's part of the hurricane hunters, who are the guys who go out and fly toward the storms to get all the information and data about the incoming hurricanes. And he also flies commercial airliners as well. So yeah, lots of pilots in my family, and we grew up in Ohio, and that was the birth of aviation, was in Ohio. Yep. So it's kind of always been in the background for me, and I never even thought about being a pilot. Never occurred to me. I just thought it was way over my head. So it was, but it is. I have a deep admiration for the profession, and just the people that have the courage to just get up in the air and just kind of trust that everything works, and
the physics behind it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Or the Mavericks out there, the Maverick types who push that plane until the wings fall off, So there's a certain gumption that you have in order to be a pilot, or really in the military in general, but specifically with pilots, just putting yourself out there in that situation all the time you
really gotta trust science. And I mean it in the best. Have faith, right? And trust science. That
the Bernoulli principle, right?
Yeah, I don't fly well. That's one of the worst things. I used to be just great. You'd throw me in a plane, I'd take a nap, get out to altitude. These guys are doing that thing. I'm over here watching this thing. Okay, whether I'm attached to somebody or not, and we're jumping out, I'm like, well, that's great, but I have no control over the situation. So all the way down if I could.
Yeah.
And then the landings always weren't great, because the guys on my back were like this tall compared to me, and I'm like this tall. It's just the funniest dynamic of when people talk about like, oh, you got to do this. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think you understand what that means. Like when people go military standard, oh, it's military grade. You mean shit? The worst? You mean lowest bidder?
Yeah, right? I was just gonna say that, the lowest bidder. Yeah.
So that's the thing. And when you bring up a pilot, right? Your family's rich in history of pilots. I find that just a profound, important position, right? Where, like you said, people put themselves out there. There's so many different avenues of becoming a pilot. That's the reason why I think it's beautiful that Top Gun did bring a lot of recruitment into the Navy. It also brought a lot of awareness to, once you get into the Navy, you really got to learn how to get your flight hours, because that's not the end all be all, right? Getting your flight hours. I didn't realize that, how difficult it was, even if you're a pilot in the Navy, to get out and do the same job. And it's like, whoa. But that's amazing. Storm hunters?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. My sister, she has a gut of steel in order to kind of live through those missions all the time during a hurricane season. But, it's interesting too, because, having all those pilots in my family, they were able to kind of, like you were talking about, with like being nervous to fly, more so as you get older. And, one of the great things about having pilots is they kind of tell you, okay, turbulence is just like bouncing around on a road when you're driving. And, that all of they kind of explain these things that when you don't know what's going on in the plane, they can really cause a lot of anxiety. And I was just I'll remember their words like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's not as scary as you think. But as I get older, that doesn't help anymore. Like one of the first times I decided to do like during to give up alcohol completely for over 40 days, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you're in your early 30s, it's a social thing and all these things, then you give it up and you realize just how much you rely on it. And that was the number one thing that was difficult for me when I initially gave up drinking for an extended period of time, was because I had to be on a plane a couple of times during Lent. And I didn't know how to be in the airport, just to even get to the gate, how much I relied on, boy, that drink before I got there to calm me down. And then getting on the plane and not being able to drink on the plane. And anytime there's a bump or a move or whatever, I'm just like, that was the number one thing that was difficult in trying to give up alcohol, was how am I going to live through the airport? Just the experience itself and the flight, it's just, yeah. But, just like anything, when you expect something of yourself and you demand something of yourself, I got through that by pressing on, pushing through. And then, what seems hard after that? I flew without booze. Everything's easy now,
That's such a great challenge. I would never be able to do that. I would need Valium.
Oh my gosh. I remember telling my dad, it was like I was having like a tough day. It was like Lent had just started. And he's like, kid, I don't think anybody's going to give you a hard time if you decide, just maybe to restart Lent tomorrow, And I was just like, if I get right. Yeah. You just, a little liturgical calendar be damned. But, it was kind of like, even he was saying with my dad, and I mean, he was, he was cool about alcohol, but he was also kind of like, when you're having a rough day, what do you do? I'm like, I think this is the point. This is the point of the exercise. You give it up for not when it's like, oh, it's easy to give up today. It's those times. And then, after Lent, I remember after 40 days of no booze and like Easter Sunday, I have like a shot and I'm like passed out on the couch because I don't have any tolerance anymore. It was, but what's interesting about that is once I did that and I saw kind of how, being able to go without your crutch is like something that can strengthen you. I started to do it beyond just Lent and just do like 30 days here, 30 days there. And it was just amazing how just in those pockets where when the whenever I was trying to make a change in would happen like that during those times, But anyway, I digress. I have flown without booze and it's not as fun. Anyway.
That's amazing, because right on there, all the different topical things where we could talk about religion, overcoming your fears, being consistent in your strategy, right? And then seeing the bright light, or I should say the bright light, that'd be scary. The silver lining.
Not yet.
Don't go towards the light.
Not today.
Because when you think about it, it's that crutch, like you said, right? I use it as a social lubricant, right? And let's be honest, society is quite frictional right now. So
exactly,
any kind of lubricant's like the best thing in life. But I did see a lot of people transitioning from, of course, that to other things. And I noticed that it's a very great topic of conversation, not just for us, but in general society, where we're seeing a lift and a shift in the cannabis arena, right? Well, where it's going from 1 to 3. There's this huge change in the Farmers Act that, people were talking about, and they're shifting markets. So I'm pretty sure there's a couple guys in the back room right now or listening to the show right now going, yeah, dog, it's not good at all, right?
Right?
Lubricating that whole situation to get through it. I find it funny because when you think about it, right, we used to be able to smoke in airplanes.
Yeah.
Right?
I remember the little ashtray that you just kind of like put your finger in. Oh my gosh, I have a great story about that. Let's hold that thought, Joey. I want to come back to that. But
yes,
one of the funniest things I ever saw was I was on an airplane. Now just let's picture, like, we talk about Lent, we talk about Jesus. My grandmother was like the purest of souls, right? And I remember being on an airplane. I was like 8 years old, and I took a nap. I fell asleep, and I woke up from this nap as a little kid, and the plane is shaking, right? We're bouncing all over the place. And my little sister is like, woo! She was like 2 years older than me. And I look over, and my grandmother has a gin and tonic in one hand and a cigarette in the other. And I swear my little 8-year-old brain broke. And I look at her and I'm like, oh, what is happening? I thought I was dead and going to hell. I just went back to sleep.
Oh my God.
Because and that's in the plane. They could do that. Like that's how people would like deal with turbulence. Oh, here's this little tiny ashtray. And my grandma, pure as can be, super, super, super pure, is over there with her drink and her cigarette. And I'm like, I don't think I'm seeing this properly. I'm gonna go back to sleep.
That's life though, right? If
Yeah.
you say that now, it sounds like a fever dream. But in the truth of what the history used to be, right? Shoot, like all the Frank Sinatra, right? All of the Rat Pack, they would do nothing but have cigars in their hand and drinks in their hand, right? They couldn't do anything else. You asked them help, they're like, well, hey, I'm kind of busy, right? It's like, well, damn, that's really smart, Frank. Shit, I'm gonna do that. My wife can you help me with the trash? Sorry, babe. Right?
My hands are full.
That my hands are full. What do you want me to do? I got a show. I'm trying to relax. Right? But that's where I think society kind of, hey, things for your health is good, right? And that's kind of the point to what we were saying is having a couple drinks every now and again is good for your health. Like people go, well, it's good for the blood. It's like, no, listen, it's good so you chill out and you don't lose whatever little bit you got left in you. And it's one of those things where I noticed that, back, like you said, your grandma, right? Like just having just a hard time just going, dear Lord, I love you, but this pilot, man, this pilot, this pilot, and what do you do with that? Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, you just got to get through it.
It was the only time I ever saw her drink and smoke. It was like that was the one and only time when she's thinking that plane isn't holding up so well. And she's just like,
oh my goodness.
It's just, but hey, and that's what, there is something to be said for blowing off steam too. We hold a lot of things inside, right? Like there's a lot of, and I was just talking to a friend the other day about all this stress that she's holding on to. And I'm like, whatever you have to do to blow this steam off, don't carry this, don't hold this. It's like, undigested food and it just sits in like a pit in you. You got to release things and you've got to, kind of, it doesn't have to be booze and it doesn't have to be cannabis, right? It can be, as I've discussed too, is that yoga is like a huge, and that's kind of a cliche, right? It's kind of like, just go sit crisscross applesauce and go put your hands on your knees and take deep breaths. Like, of course you're going to feel better, but there's also a conditioning and strengthening aspect that I think people leave out. Like when you go and you say, I'm going to lose 5 pounds. And even if it takes you 6 months, when you lose that 5 pounds, like it's like this entire new world because you're actually keeping promises to yourself. And I don't think anything gets rid of stress like keeping promises to yourself. And if you just think about all day long, how many promises you don't keep to yourself, that has a cumulative effect, and it just kind of stacks and stacks. And it's just this thing you carry around. So the idea that yoga is a tool to kind of help you keep a promise to yourself. You want to lose 5 pounds, you want to get more healthy. If it weren't for yoga, I wouldn't have quit smoking cigarettes. And I smoked cigarettes for like 20 years or so, So yeah, it was like when I worked in television. So that's why. I mean, what else are you going to do between like super intense control room experiences? You're going to go outside and have a smoke with your producer or with your, with your technical director, or, you just had to get out of the room, and kind of that's how I would blow off smoke. But then the interesting thing is when I kind of made that shift into yoga years and years later, I would leave the room and I'd go do 3 minutes of breath of fire, which I don't know if you're familiar, Joey, but
that sounds awesome.
Yeah. So breath of fire is this, like, you take a deep breath in and then you let half of it out and then you just pump it out with your navel. You just pump your navel and push the air out. And that breath and oxygenation, it resets your brain. And then it was better than any ever cigarette I ever had, just getting all that occlusion through your system. It's a Kundalini technique.
Yeah.
It's ancient. Kundalini. Yeah. The cult light of yoga.
Right.
I love it. It's like, as far as like its effectiveness, it's wonderful. But it's had, its history, its colorful history as well.
I always find it so dynamic to talk about yoga, right? Because when you talk about yoga, you got to talk about religions, right? And if you talk about religions, you got to talk about societies. And in societies, you have to look at culture, right, as a whole. people who practice yoga don't have the same symptomologies or morbidities that we have in the United States.
Right.
I wonder why. So
Right.
back to that promise, making promises for yourself to lose 5, 10, whatever, how many pounds. It can't be a goal, right? It has to be a part of that journey. Like people go, well, if all you're focusing on making money or all you're trying to do is produce a show, you're not going to produce shit that's worth it because you're just
Yeah.
so trapped in this little thing, just pinging back and forth like that. And before you know it, the thing that comes out is it's not good, right? It's just this
Right. It's almost,
thing.
it's misdirected energy, right? And
Yeah.
it's kind of like with yoga, it has like this holistic approach because I didn't start yoga with the mind of losing weight per se. I started it because people promised mental clarity with it, you know, and in all of these other things I was trying to, you know, kind of get away from. And it took years. It's not like I did 2 yoga classes and I was cured and I was no longer smoking and drinking and blah, blah. I mean, this was like a process. I think with yoga, I always came back to it because it always met me where I was. There was always a yoga class that I could take having smoked however many cigarettes I used to smoke a day. Or there was always, I could do a 10-minute class if I didn't have time for the entire hour. There was just always a way that it met me where I was. And that's why over the years, I increasingly would, you know, just participate more as my health got better and as my endurance got better. And as, you know, and then I started teaching it, which was an interesting story. I ended up signing up for yoga teacher training right before COVID hit.
Oh, no.
And I remember thinking to myself and telling my boyfriend at the time, I was like, I got to sign up. I ended up with this teacher. She was amazing. And she was in downtown Los Angeles. And she was like, I'll totally take you on as my apprentice. And it was just this huge opportunity. It was a class that I went to all the time. And I, at the time, was working on NBA Countdown, and we were doing shows on random Saturdays and Sundays, exactly when they love to have yoga teacher training for like 8 hours a day, you know? And I just remember thinking, like, I don't know how I'm going to make this work. She knows I have to work, but I don't think she's really hearing me when I'm telling her, like, I don't know how many of these like things I might have to do an independent study, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, like, I signed up for yoga teacher training with no idea how I was going to make it work. And then COVID hit. And all of a sudden, now we're all stuck inside, right?
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, we're all dealing with stress and all of those types of things. And oh, by the way, it was when Lent was coming up, which was when I always give up booze. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm so glad I'm in yoga teacher training right now. And then Zoom became a thing. And we all live on Zoom now. And I just remember thinking, this is great. We can teach yoga and yoga training to each other on Zoom. We don't even have to go into studios. Like, I know it stunk that COVID was going on, but I'm just saying this was like a silver lining for me because as a yoga teacher, I felt like I could reach a whole lot more people teaching on Zoom. And that's how we were taught because of what was going on with the pandemic. So not only did the schedule open up and work and make it so that I could spend all of this time going to yoga class with my full participation without having to worry about making it work with work and things. And it probably saved me from self-medicating a lot during the pandemic, right? Because I had this thing to look forward to every day. And I was studying, whether it was studying anatomy and physiology and history of yoga, and then the practicum and going to all the courses you have to go to and all of that. It was just, the timing just couldn't have been more auspicious. And I really felt like, yeah, there were some horrible things about COVID. There really were. But in my experience, that's where I became a yoga teacher and was able to, you know, kind of share all these things I learned. My first yoga class, I think, was like 2009, maybe 2010. It was at this like little studio over in El Segundo. And it was really cool. People are like, why are you going to drive across town from downtown LA to El Segundo? And I was like, because the beach is over there and I get to see it for 10 minutes. I know that's not very much time, but to me, it was worth it. So yeah. I'd go to this yoga class. And then back then I was also going to yoga and then driving to USC to go to grad school classes before going into work at night. Those were some busy days.
Well, it sounds to me that you found your flow, right, within that energy of give and take. Right. Where
yes.
I think everybody's trying to find that. And I think that's kind of where a lot of things get misplaced, right? Like you were saying, you know, self-medication because you're trapped, right? But I think what COVID did was shine a light on the totality of our societal flaws. Okay.
Yeah.
We have so many that immediately after we're like, just get back to normal. Just get back to normal. We just
right.
Oh,
right.
shit. And then all the Doge stuff happens, right?
Yeah.
Like as soon as we started kind of getting back into rhythm, everybody was like, yeah, no, it's okay. We're going to get back to it. Everybody's going to go back to work. Don't worry. Doge comes out. Oh, no matter who you are, as soon as they started firing like 80,000 VA employees, right? No matter what it is, when you start downsizing, everybody's going to get really scared and they're going to get really, really, really like this and that, just like the ostrich, right? And I
Oh
think that's
yeah.
the reason why I love how you found the thing that worked for you, right? In the midst of all the bad, which is tremendous bad. I go that there had to be some profound goods, and here you are. You become, an instructor, and you're actually able to utilize it in a way where you don't have to be limited by the confines of this three-dimensional world, so to speak, right? You can
Oh
go
yeah.
boop, 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 boop. And you could be like, hey, Joe, here's this. You want to do this? And it's fire breathing plus downward dog, right? All the good stuff, right? And I'm like, yeah. And then I get healthy, right? And then, I don't have to use my chair as much, which is great.
That's one of
That's
the
the
things I
goal.
love about teaching yoga is it's a self-empowering thing. I'm not empower. I'm teaching people how to, and that's what it did for me too. Finding that part of yourself where you can do this by yourself. You see a yoga instructor enough times, you'll internalize and know what works for you, and you can do what you need to do to feel healthier in your own skin. Like you don't have to do it like somebody else does it.
Yeah.
There's modifications, there's different approaches. And once again, like if you're a smoker like I was doing 15-minute classes to start, like, okay, I got the breath. And then
But
over
the
time,
modification, yeah, that modification stuff, like the most sports that I've ever been in, okay, you're not training to be modified. You're training to, right, hit motherfucker. I'm over here, and I'm wrestling you. I'm throwing you, right? But in yoga, it's like, yeah, like, hey, dude, modify it if you need to. Like when I started taking my first classes, when I was getting intensive treatment in San Diego, NMCSD, I had like 12 medical appointments a day. All right.
wow.
One of them was yoga, and it was yoga adapted yoga. And I never knew that yoga is just essentially, you put one of these down on the ground, it looks like, and then you roll another little foamy thingy over there, and then you sit down, and then the person goes, okay, now just imagine your brain going up this way and your feet going that way. Now take a deep breath. And as you let go, imagine it going further. And I'm like, is this like you get paid for this? Like, I'd love it, but like you get paid for this. And it was because they would have the instructors come in, and there'd be like 15 of us, right? There'd be a couple amputees that are trying to be more mobile, right? And then a couple other guys that, are like me, internal injuries or, invisible injuries, right? Marketing,
Yeah.
right? And at the end of the day, you're looking at it, and it's just a group of people essentially doing these stretches and exercises, breathing in each other's farts. Okay.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that was what I learned about yoga. Everybody farts, and you're going to feel like you shouldn't. And then the moment you do, everybody goes, namaste. And you're like, dog, did you just inhale on that? Did you just okay. Hey, Susan, you're weird, but I like you. Like, all right.
Now we're all super tight in this class.
Exactly. And it really, I noticed that, like, people would open up, in the class, not just with their farts, of course, but with communicating and saying, hey, man, because we had a lot of Marines, and I was one of the only corpsmen, moving through these programs. And they would be, hey, doc, I'm really having a hard time with this. And, I'm getting all these appointments, but, I need this. And I'm like, all right, dude, like, hey, come on. And we'd go walk it, and we'd go handle it. Right. Because what I learned about everything that I've ever touched in my life is if you don't use your legs to get to places, you won't get to places, and you won't have your legs. So no matter what it is, if you don't put yourself out there, much like in any yoga pose, you're not restricted by other people's perspectives of you, even the instructor. Okay. Nobody
Right.
knows how hard you're trying, but you, and it gives you that empowerment. And I love that.
I always tell people too, because when I'm teaching and I give them like, 3 or 4 ways depending on how tricky the pose is or how demanding the pose is, I'm like, you can stay here. If you feel steady, now we're going to go here. If you feel steady. And so the other day I had to tell one of my students who I just noticed was like always like super wobbly and just trying to go. And I'm like, you don't have to do the full expression of the pose. You can stay, like, the balance only works where you can stay balanced. If you're over there trying to throw yourself up into this thing, like, I'm just showing you the progression so that you kind of understand how this is going to look as you advance, but you don't have to do it exactly like I do it. And that's kind of a tricky thing with a lot of yoga teachers, is just kind of explaining there is a part in this pose for you, no matter what it looks like. You know, if you're going to do a balance like a half moon and you're like throwing up your leg behind you and you're trying to keep your arm and you can't be steady, well, just keep your hands in front of you and just bring your leg up. And there's just these little ways that I try to, so people don't get discouraged, because that's the easiest thing to talk yourself out of. Like, yoga's not for me, you know, I can't hold a balance, I can't whatever. Well, do you know that a lot of the times tree pose, the padding of your foot is actually, it's okay if that's on the ground, it's still tree. You don't have to push yourself too far, you know? And so that was always the thing for me. I'm like, if the reason I stuck with it, and believe me, I did like step aerobics, I did the elliptical, I did all of these different things, because I was never a naturally skinny kid. I had to work at it. I had to run around the tennis court to burn off, you know, just like lunch, you know, just like I didn't have a whole lot of room for error there, you know, but yoga stuck with me, and it's because it was accessible wherever you are. And so I think when you're in a class with people like that too, everyone looks different, you know, and you don't want to compare yourself with other people either. Yoga is a very you versus you sort of activity, where you're just kind of measuring your own progress against where you were. It's not really against other people. And I mean, I think that like Instagram models and things doing yoga are beautiful and they're aspirational, but I hope the hope is that they don't talk people out of in their own minds of trying it, you know, because it is for everybody.
I see that so much in the way of correlating wrestling, right? Where yes, it's your own sport, it's your individual, it's a team sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody gets to determine who's good or bad until you're on the mat. Trust me, everybody has bad days, good days. But in yoga, it's even more incorporating, right? Where you really, there is no, don't get me wrong, I noticed this in today's day and age with even psychedelics. Like, we're hitting a whole new era of hippies, where it's the corporate
super
hippie.
hippies. Corporate hippies. Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's the same vibe of like when yoga came into really kind of sushi, like everything that's trendy kind of comes and goes. But the good things like sushi, right? Yoga, right? They stick around, like, and it's for you. And where you're like, hey, like when I had to relearn how to walk so many different times after my falls. So I have severe falls and I lose all of functioning of my legs and I collapse, right? And it's just down for like weeks on end. And so this last period, my wife and I, we didn't stay quiet, which probably didn't help. Okay. So we try to get help, right? And we try to go see doctors, all this different stuff. I finally get an in-home physical therapist, and they finally see how bad everything is, right? The neuropathy, the atrophy, the pain, everything else, right? And my foot droops, like all this bad stuff. At that time, I'd just been in the bed for about a month and a half, essentially. And my wife and I have been doing physical therapy by ourselves ever since I was in the military, because again, the whole goal isn't to keep going to the doctor. It is to do the exercises because there's nothing to do with my condition. And that's the interesting part. It's one of that continual resets of, okay, cool. But when this lady taught us a little bit more about yoga stretching and deep breath exercises, right, and band work, that was not just the elastic bands, which is super duper cool, but the bands, the stretch bands, where you got like little hoops every which way.
Mm-hmm.
You lift up on your foot and you just like pull it in. I got so much benefit from it, right? The pain was, oh my God. But that's the kind of thing when I talk about natural medicines, people go, well, you're just being lazy. You're just being this. I'm gonna go, no, actually, if you'd hang out, right, you'd be like, God damn it, how is this guy still alive? And I'm like, yep. But yoga is one of those things that kept me going too, in the sense where I know I want my body to move, right? The whole rolling stone gathers no moss, right?
Yeah.
And I know the same thing, just like, you know, hey, I have to work to keep the weight off. I got all the way up to 85 pounds. And that would be right during the falls and everything that was just happened recently. So in the past year, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I've gone down to 214 pounds, right? Me and my wife have been doing a lot of the exercises. We've been doing a lot of the PT and the yogas and the stretches and the natural medicines. Me and Dr. Michelle Ross were just talking about that, where if you look at it, the dynamic of medical care, though, it has to incorporate the whole health mindset.
Right.
this, well, here's gabapentin. All right, you should be good with your nerve pain. Hey, dog, I don't, and it made me feel worse. Well, it is a side effect. We do know it, but we're just not going to acknowledge you because it doesn't
Right.
benefit us. I'm like,
Right.
yeah. What's the
Yeah.
back cause of yoga? You feel silly when you fart.
Yeah, exactly. Or you don't look as graceful as you think you do, which is actually, you're always your worst critic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and oh, by the way, like, unless you're like, a performing yoga, nobody really is paying too much attention. I mean, I, as a teacher, yes, I watch people on Zoom just to make sure their form is okay and they're not going to hurt themselves. But really, there's no judgment there. There's no like, well, if your foot was turned a little bit more toward the 45-degree angle, like nobody. And if you do, that says more about you than another person anyway. So it's not
I
even
agree
worth
so
worrying
much.
about. It's really, and that's the beauty of it too, is that they're on the flip side of this whole like, competing with yourself and not wanting to do something negative. When you impress yourself, and even just the little wins, even just those little micro victories that are like, oh, that was easy today. This thing that usually makes me wobble was easy today. And consistency is key. Like yoga, with anything else, if you show up, you don't even have to show up again for like an hour every day. It's just 15 minutes a day. That is enough. Those little wins are what keep you going. And those little wins and those things, again, promises made to yourself as well. Like the most weight that I ever lost in my life was when I was just doing yoga every day just to see if I could show up every day. It wasn't even like, oh, here I am going to, sweat and push and blah, blah, blah. It was just, I wanted to see if I could master consistency, because consistency really is the trick. A lot of times it feels like, oh, well, I couldn't do it for this long. And it's like, you ever wonder, like when you get yourself to the gym and all of a sudden everything's easy because you're already there. It's that getting out of bed at 5 a.m. before it's light out and getting your butt up. That's the hard part. And once you get there, whether it's the gym or the yoga studio or wherever you're doing your training, once you get there, that's the easy part. I mean, my husband was just in a 5K last weekend, and he mentioned how the hardest part the whole morning was getting up at 5 and walking to the starting line, when it was like dark out and cold out and windy out,
Yeah.
but the run was the easy part, So it's really just the kind of getting there and showing up, and then not judging yourself, because especially a great yoga teacher is going to be more interested in your gains than the way you feel about yourself in the negative sense, So it's kind of like, just showing up and if you can just show up consistently, then the rest of it takes care of itself in my experience,
No, but that's profoundly true, right? I think we get so caught up in what the appeals are of people, right? We think, oh, the stand-up comedian was just immediately successful. It's like, no, dude, you didn't hear about him for 15 years, and then all of
Right.
a sudden, right, he became relevant because he's putting the reps and sets in, right? For yoga, it's the same thing. If you show up, you do your best. Again, everybody has a different best every different day, but that consistency, and that's what I love how you put it, to just show up, put yourself in there, give it 100%, be present, right? And stop the judgments all across the world. Like, don't judge me, don't judge you, lest thou be judged, right? And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, because I'm the kind of guy that I know I'm judged, right? My poor wife, she worries about me all the time because I was
course.
loading up my wheelchair in my truck, right? And she goes, "Why are you loading up your wheelchair?" And I'm like, "Well, because I need the walker and the cane, because I don't know how I'm going to feel, 30 minutes into this or an hour into that." She goes, "Yes, but if somebody sees you pulling that thing out and sitting in it, they're going to be like, 'What is this? What is this?'" And I'm like, "Heidi, look, I love you, but that's my point. What's their business of what it is or
Right.
how badly I need it, or if it's transitional, or if it's periodical, or if it's inflamed. Well, my pain's out here now, I need the chair." And everybody goes, "Well, you're either in it or you're not." And I'm like, well, that's kind of not how life works, right? Because
It's
if
really
we
not their business, is it, Joey? It's not
It
their
isn't.
business.
And it
No.
isn't. What my power to truth is if you're that regimented to your beliefs and fundamental ideologies, why aren't we out there like saving children that are being trafficked right now? Oh, well, because I clocked off at the work at the job, and that. No, okay. So the start point and the stop point of your humanity is based on what, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're, it's not your fault if somebody has something to think about what you're doing. Like
Yeah.
it's, it's kind of, you're just doing your life, you're living your life, and live and let live. That's kind of a lot of the way that I approach things too, is just like, if somebody shows up for a class, or if somebody's showing up to do something that's positive, whether it's if it's for yourself, that translates, right? If you're taking care of yourself and being good to yourself, that usually translates to being good to others. That's kind of why they say, put your mask on first. That's usually how it works out. So anytime you see anybody trying to do anything, like people who, try to stay physically fit and all of these things, it's so much better that they're contributing that way. Who's really not contributing are the people who are online constantly trolling and have nothing ever positive to say. And I won't devolve into that part of the conversation, but I will just say that there's a lot of other things that people could be doing that, I love to see people doing anything that's positive, and I'm happy for them. And I'm usually very, like, it's just so great to see productive activity. And whether or not, it's not up for my judgment, but, I do want to celebrate people that are doing, positive things for themselves, and then therefore other people,
Yeah. That's something that I find unique about our culture in today's society, where when you think about unification, we think of it as this unattainable goal right now. And I go, yeah, Abraham nailed it back in the day when he was like, hey, house divided, yo, not cool.
Right.
And when
to simplify it, but yeah.
No, that's how
I'm
he
just
delivered
kidding.
it. Everybody else fluffed it up. He was really, really like eloquent. Like, hey, dog, I'm not going to the theater. Somebody's probably going to shoot me tonight. No, Mr. President, you got to go because you got an appearance. All right, man. I'm just saying, I got a weird feeling, but if something happens, I already told you. Like that. That's how I feel everybody is. Like I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like when Jesus Christ was like going through that whole situation, he was like, listen, dogs, I don't know what else to tell you, but I can't change it. You can't change it. Oh, okay, now you're just gonna go tell on me, Judas. All right, dog. Like, thank you. Oh, you're gonna put a thorn on me. All right, there we go. Okay, here we go. But I feel like if we were to put more humanity into the scenario, we would agree with like, oh my God, yeah, he did die for our sins. I'm like, yeah, totally did. P.S. You shouldn't judge Mary as she's using a wheelchair to go do yoga because she has fibromyalgia. Okay.
Oh, exactly. You should be over there. Obviously not clapping in her face, but just in your mind, like, just being like, this is great to see people have courage. We need to celebrate courage more, and courage on so many levels. It takes just enough courage to go into a yoga class and you don't know what you're doing and you're afraid that everyone's going to be looking at you. And then especially like you're saying, like I'm going out there and I'm showing up and I'm doing these things and your wife is obviously she's looking out for you. My husband does the same for me. Like, maybe just so you know, like people see you when you are saying stuff or like spouting off, he's very much like, what are people gonna think, and I'm like, who cares?
Let them think. Like that would be the first time they
important.
thought, that'd be the first time they've thought in probably years. Let them think, right?
Yeah.
I find it so empowering though to hear it come from another person that yes, we're our spouses and our significant others. When you have this personality type where you're just like, look, I'm an open book. I don't know what else to tell you. I wish I wasn't.
Oh yeah.
I wish you didn't make me open the book. In fact, I wish a lot of things. But for you, it's like I get it. Like people, the same thing about saying stuff, right? And I'm pretty sure you've been around the locker room talk, okay? Like dealing with sports, dealing with production, a smoke deck, right? Conversation. Smoke deck conversations were some of the best conversations I ever had with people, right? You go out in the smoke deck and everything's really crappy, and you're like, all right, guys, like, hey, what are we doing? I don't know.
Or what the was that? Those conversations are always great too. And you're like, did we just see that?
It's like a long pause too. Everybody gets at least 2 puffs and like
we used to call it the bus stop at ESPN. We used to call it the bus stop in Bristol, Connecticut, because there was like this thing. It was like this overhang thing. It looked like where you would wait for a bus stop and they'd want you to go inside of it, all of you, and like smoke under this thing, which, when it rained and snowed was cool. But yeah, we'd all be at the best bus stop, huddled in this thing and just like, so anybody want to talk about what just happened? That's where all the great bonding and, wonderful conversation happened.
Yeah, I would say the most relevant conversations I find are usually occur, maybe after the first or second beer. Okay,
There you go. Yeah.
definitely midway joint. Okay, half a joint, people open up. I don't care who you are.
Yep.
And then smoke decks. Like you got a couple cigarettes. Like one in today's world, it's a closed off society, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, you still smoke tobacco? It's like,
Yeah.
dog, like you can get just as much cancer taking vitamin C, dog.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Exactly. Not to enable
not to
those who are
say-
trying
yeah,
to quit out there, but
exactly. You do you, but let's put the emphasis on the thing of, well, if it's not doing good and it's not causing better. I've seen men smoke packs a day, run 3 miles in under 20 minutes or at that 20-minute mark. Okay, these were
Yeah.
Marines, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But they would do things like okay, first and foremost, you would do things in the military. Your canteen is your canteen. It's like Lil Wayne's cup. What's my cup is my cup. What's in my canteen is in my canteen. Okay. I'm just saying that if you ever, everybody, all our listeners, they know this. If you've ever opened up another person's canteen and go, oh my God, I just need some water. It reminds you of that scene of who was it? Cheech and Chong. I don't think it was Up in Smoke, one of the movies where he goes like, oh my God, I just need a water. And then the judge, he grabs the judge's like water thing and he starts guzzling it. He goes, oh, it's fucking vodka. Yeah. And it's like, that's what happens. So don't drink out of each other's cup. But that lubricant of getting through, I noticed that those are the best conversations where people go, hey, P.S. Look, I know this is like $100 million deal. Right, whatever's going on, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of jobs, right? Just the future of humanity in this little region of a town. So why are we paying that much on the percentage on this shit, dog? Like, I just gotta say it. Like, why are we doing the back end tax deals with this much? Hey, we still don't even got a bullet train, dog. Like, oh my God. Homelessness is on the rise, Gavin Newsom's. Like, I would love to have a joint with that guy and just be like, listen, I love that you pivoted in your persona. I love your character shift. I feel like I've impressed upon him a bit because I do. It's interesting that he pivoted away from the whole like, to I hate hypocrites. And I'm like,
Is that so?
Good job. Okay, keep it going. It's bullshit what these people are doing. Nice cussing. All right, we're good. Come on, keep going, Mr. Next President, potentially. And we got to hold people accountable. I like what he's saying. What do you want me to do? I like what he's saying. Of course, he is who he is. He's like goop. He's malleable to whatever container you put him in. But hey, he's starting to say some stuff, and I'm like, maybe it's because everybody is just at their breaking point, right? Where we have these social lubricants, we have yoga, we have cigarettes, we got cannabis, we got mushrooms. You can get really loaded. Like, that's the crazy thing is like everybody that talks about it goes, so if you do that thing, you're immediately just not considered, truthful. And I'm like, well, why is it that, like we were talking about at the beginning of the show, we tolerate such a polish to the representatives that don't actually represent us in that polished look, right? That's not who we are. I'm not.
It's phony.
Right. It's fake.
Yeah.
And it feels phony and it comes off as phony. But we do this performative act, right? That's the reason why I bring up the VA every time I can, because it's a performance. We're telling people we want to help veterans, and we're taking $500 billion out of the economy through the taxes, and we're failing utterly. If this was a sports show, right? And I know you'd be able to like nail it. If you're to look at the points on when we get a goal, like our touchdown, and we make it, then the VA is like negative goals. Like, it's just like they have these huge goals, but then when they go out to make effect, it would be just like a quarterback going out, hey, it's Super Bowl, man, you got your team to the you're getting paid, okay? You got your team here, and the only thing you keep doing is He just came after me.
You mean like what year was that where oh gosh, was it Peyton Manning who had the opening snap against the Seahawks, and it like went right, it was like the first play of the Super Bowl, and everybody's like, oh no, like, and the snap just goes way above his head, and it's like, Okay, well,
Welcome
was
to the
like,
fucking game.
how do you get your mind back? I mean, talking about like sports, and nothing teaches you about like, being mentally tough and being
Yeah.
focused like sports. And the first thing I thought when I saw that play, I think it was like 2015, 2014, something like that, was how are they ever going to mentally get back? That's a whole thing too. I didn't mean to go on a tangent on you,
No,
but
it's
just when
beautiful.
you
No,
mentioned like the
exact point. That's the
Yeah.
exact point. Like, how do you regroup after? Like, here's the worst part. Let's say we're that quarterback, we're on that team, and we're going to win regardless. We don't know that yet, right? So
Yeah.
in the midst of the problems, we try to figure it out, right? Sports has always taught me so much, playing football and wrestling. Wrestling was, again, it's a team sport, but you got to really show the fuck up for yourself, by yourself.
Yeah.
Football, you can kind of skate. You could be a little like, oh no, he's over there. I'm running, coach. Right? No. Wrestling is like, you can't. Hey, I'm gonna soften up here. He's gonna throw me for 5 points. No, thank you. So I love how sports brings the dynamic of philosophy, right? But in societal context,
so much. I mean,
Yeah.
it has the reputation, especially watching football as a spectator sport. It's got that like hot dog and beer kind of, but it's not. It's philosophy. It's chess out, playing out in front of us. It's battle strategy,
Yep.
and that actually ties into why I went into sports in the first place, because a lot of like my first love was like Dateline and hard news, but then like I studied hard news and saw people like die, and I'd cry every night. I'm like, well, maybe news isn't for me. And then I started in entertainment, and I went into entertainment type reporting. And then I'm sorry, I hated everybody in entertainment. Not everybody, but I just kind of felt like, yeah, I am way too honest to be in this profession. But then I was always like a sports fan, and I never really understood that I could do that as a journalistic pursuit, because I thought that the Howie Longs and the Terry Bradshaws, I'm dating myself, the guys that do sports journalism, and then ended up kind of getting connected and figuring out how I could like cover sports. And so that was what drew me to the journalism aspect of sports, the stories and the philosophy and you can't fake it and be a sports star. You're not somebody that can just show up and charm somebody or know the right people, even though I know that's important. But if you're going to be a sports star, even LeBron James has to practice, and you have to show up. You have to know that if you want a goal or if you want to accomplish something, this is how you go about doing that. And like I mentioned, like playing tennis and how I always had to kind of work to be in good shape, even very young. Like you understand that goal equals all of this effort on repeat. If you want to get it, you're going to have this. And so telling those stories, especially the long shot stories, I'll tell you what, you want to know the favorite thing we ever covered at ESPN for me was the Special Olympics. You want to talk about determination and grit and not being overly concerned with people telling you that you can't do it. That was the only thing I ever covered in my entire career in a control room where I cried counting backwards from 10 to count off the air, because I was so emotional. And I remember like I was counting master control off the air. I'm like 10, 9, because we're playing this like incredibly like emotional and just amazing rollout of all of these athletes who came and showed up, and no one had any idea what they were going to do, and just their belief in themselves pays off. And I'm like 8, 7, 6, and master control's like, are you crying right now? But those are the stories that I love to tell, where I'm here in my life, and anybody who has a heart and a spirit can take that and show up and be consistent, and it'll pay off in such a beautiful way. And that's a universal story. I mean, I would be hard pressed again to find a person that, if you have a goal and you have that consistency to show up in your heart, because I mean, that's where a lot of people fail, right? Is that whole like, this is too hard, whatever phase you're at. This is too hard. The sports teaches you, if you keep showing up and if you keep on putting your heart out there, it pays off most of the time in whatever you're trying to do, or something better. Like sometimes sports will lead you or lead certain athletes to realize they're on the wrong path, but the same philosophy applies to what they want to do in their life. So, they start off in one sport end up in another. You hear about that a lot too, that they find their way. And so those stories, that was always the whole reason I was just all about sports journalism. And those actually, you want to talk about like people who are just honest about how they feel about things, whether it was at the bus stop smoking or whether it was right outside the control room. A lot of the people who work in sports also, they are also incredibly with an honesty attached to whatever team brought them there. They all have a story that happened with their father, with their grandfather, with their mom, with their friends when they were growing up. They all have the people that I worked with, working in sports journalism, all had a story like that brought them there. And it was like, that's the most honest thing that you can share in common with your colleagues, is this love for what you're doing, and I loved it because, again, it was inspirational to me. It wasn't like entertainment where, sorry, I know acting is hard. Trust me. I've had my, forays in it and I get it. But the idea that, you can be kind of a crappy actor and still have a career. You can't really be a crappy pitcher and have be in the starting lineup, So
sports is pragmatic.
Yeah. And applicable at so many other levels. I mean, you don't have to be in the major leagues in order to feel accomplished by what sports can teach you, and that kind of just ties into the whole aspect of yoga and the aspect of anything that you show up to do. These guys are showing up and showing you. And some of the personalities are colorful, some of them aren't great examples of peopling in the world. But most of them, on the whole, especially like when you look at a football team, you can have a football team that has a couple of jerks that are in the forefront in the spotlight, but then there's like a whole roster of just these really great guys who are doing really great things and teaching these principles to kids, or teaching it to people who feel that they have no strength in their own lives, and that's the beautiful thing about sports. And that's why I went into sports, right? I wanted to tell those stories, and I wanted to learn from those guys just by being around them all the time, and kind of, I remember the first time I met Orel Hershiser, and he was like the pitcher during like the Indians World Series run in 1995. And that was a series that changed me, right? Because that was like one of the first times long-suffering Cleveland, where I grew up, championship? What? We're smelling a championship? Oh, the party in that city was something else, And so, when I first met Orel Hershiser sitting across from him in the newsroom, I was just like, I don't know, the eminence of greatness was rubbing off on me. I just sitting there. It was just like, and I mean, that crosses into hero worship, and you kind of have to be careful about that because they are people. But there is definitely an eminence of like, this is a dude who, under the highest of pressure, pulled it off. So I can go into this control room where I've never directed this show before, and I can do it because the guys who are sitting at that desk have pulled off some really cool things too. And it kind of rubs off on you. And I felt like that was something that also rubbed off in the programming that we were putting on, is that people are seeing these hero stories. And as long as you treat this is actually, I wrote my thesis in grad school about heroes and the effect that heroes have, because Arnold Schwarzenegger was my hero. And Joey, we could do a whole other podcast on that. I won't even go into that. But that was another thing. Show up consistently and you'll do what you want to do. But anyway, telling those stories were the things that inspired me as a kid. Like the heroes who, like, they can do anything, And so that's kind of, it's nice to kind of put goodness out there into the ether,
Absolutely. Because when you look at it, right, we love heroes for a reason. It's because it speaks to our inner courage, our inner hero ourselves. Right.
Yeah.
And until we actually see through that, I want to say veil, that worship or that idolatry, whatever you want to call it, it comes from a respectful place, right? The theory or histories of men and throughout all of time. When you think about it and you think of these huge personalities, right? Paul Bunyan, right? When you think of all the different types of, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? You bring him up, and you got to immediately start going on, Sylvester Stallone. And you do it in a way where, like, even sports, right? Like, I'm not savvy. Okay. I don't remember names, and I just like games, and I like watching sometimes, but I get super intense. So I don't watch the game. Every time I try to get my boys to watch football, Heidi's like, just don't do it. I'm like, they're not even football fucking hit it. They're walking around like this is touch football. And then so it just I don't do it, right? And it comes from a place because I go look at the opportunity right at the in front of everybody, including the people who are watching it, producing it, like yourself, being able to take a story, like say, what was it, King Griffey Jr., right? Oh, you kidding me? Oh, James, they all the different things. I grew up. I had his card, right? And I didn't know his dad was all this different stuff. So it like gets you even deeper into the story. And then before you know it, you're watching baseball going like, hey, did you see that? They were doing, and then somebody did, somebody did that. And they're like, what is that? Oh, that's their code. They speak in code? Yeah, they do. And you're supposed to still second, I guess, I'm pretty sure somebody said, hey, get me a hot dog and 2 beers. I don't know. Right.
Exactly. Right. You could anything.
but that enjoyment, right? That enjoyment. And I love that. I love that.
Then you don't even need to know the stars or the latest box scores to get the positive effect from that. I mean, first of all, there's also the smaller farm teams and the little leagues and I remember we went to the now defunct IHL. A lot of my first hockey games were the International Hockey League in Cleveland, the Cleveland Lumberjacks. And, there's just different levels that you could always experience some big moments, and you can do it even if you don't even know who Peyton Manning is or, it doesn't really matter. The principle applies even going to a high school game. And I mean, it's kind of unfair of me to say because high school games for us in Ohio involved LeBron James, but I actually I got to drop this in. I'm sorry. I can't help myself, but I went to high school where LeBron went. So I saw him when he was super young because my old teachers, when I'd go back to visit them at St. Vincent St. Mary, they'd say, you got to see this kid who's about to start here, And so I started covering high school basketball that year, not LeBron, but I was covering basketball before I graduated college.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I went and I have I wish I could find it. Oh my gosh. On VHS, I have windmill dunks he was doing in 9th grade. And I'm like, God, where'd that footage go? That would be so cool to have,
VHS. You're just
I know. It was super VHS,
memories.
but
Yeah. Still, the fact that gentlemen like that, right? You have a familiar story, a familiar, a connection point, right? The whole 6 degrees of separation type thing. I always find very intriguing. Lorenzo Neal went to the same high school that I went to, wrestled football, of course, right?
Yeah.
And he would come in the room and do, a lot of stuff with the kids and talking and stuff and whatnot. And throughout the years, we keep in touch, right? But everybody that I always kind of met, it just always was this unique relationship, right? Where it wasn't, oh, here's this super famous person doing crazy stuff. It was like, oh, hey, there you go. Yeah, that guy. Hey, he's got a killer head and arm. You better watch out. That guy's got a killer Jap wizard and a head and arm. Before you know it, you meet these gentlemen and you meet these young ladies. Oh, the female wrestlers are just taking off.
Yes. Oh, it's so awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a whole, it's not a whole other sport, but it's a whole other sport. Women move different than men.
Yes.
And what I'm learning is they're a lot more technical and they're very, very calculated. I watched a women's wrestling tournament here. Actually, it's been quite a few years now. And one of the coolest things that I loved seeing was the intensity. I hate lazy wrestlers. Okay, get in there.
I bet. Oh,
get in there.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't do it. That's right. You got to get in there. You got to get intense. And these girls were intense. I mean, these young ladies. Okay, they were getting after it. They were throwing. They were getting thrown. They were popping back up. It wasn't it wasn't how it was when I was a kid. Right, where look. Female wrestlers were even few and far in between. Okay. But it was also a kind of a softer sport, especially when it became you have to wrestle a female because it's like, dude, this is a new glove everybody's trying on. Right.
I
don't know where do I touch? I don't know. Is this the yellow
I know.
zone?
Oh Lord.
Is this yellow? I had to wrestle a girl, right? Mind you, it's a heavyweight. Okay. Big lady. And properly endowed, right? With whatever the bigness people have, plenty of it. And I'm like, hey, coach. And she's like, and I'm like, just pushing her head and I'm over here. I'm like, the coach looks at me. All I did was a little pull and a sweep with my leg, right? She went straight to her back, and I didn't even get down on. I just held her chest like this, like right on top, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. She goes, oh no, thank you. Okay, and she got up. Super nice lady. Okay, the whole sports era of when I grew up to now, right? Chris Pendleton is one of the brightest wrestlers that came out of the school. He was going to be Olympic, I think, a competitor at one point in time. There's just so many people out of Lemoore High School that came into the wrestling arena, in Hanford as well. The whole spectrum of guys in MMA. Chad Mendez, I grew up literally wrestling with the kid. Not literally, he's tiny. Okay, but
Like,
we grew up together, and there he is, and his little fucking brother Mikey, right? And we're all playing and doing backflips and whatnot. But that's the most beautiful moments, is when you see a child fall in love with the sport, right?
yeah.
Become proficient in its consistency, and then be
Yeah.
dedicated. I don't know LeBron
Yeah.
James to anybody. I don't know any, like Shaq. Cool. Hey, these cool people. I'd love to meet them. I got a lot more. I want to say professional questions for Jacques.
Jacques.
Here's Jacques. I mean, excuse me, Jacques. How do I get 10 Five Guys or whatever? How do we do this franchising business that you're really good at? That would be my biggest question for him. Because I don't know how to do a free throw. Clearly, he doesn't either.
Neither does he. I was gonna say my question for him would be, how do you keep showing up to the line with a straight face, knowing that you blow at that? Like that's a great life lesson too.
He just does it.
He still shows up. I mean, look at him. He still shows up, even though pretty much we know how it's gonna go.
Yeah. It was, that's not what his thing was. It's not like people say, wrestle your match. Okay, wrestle the way you wrestle. Shaq had to play game he played, right? The way he played. Lorenzo did the same thing, football, right? All these great people. When you look back at the layers of it, I go back to military tradition, right? You got to bring up Pat Tillman, right?
Oh, Pat Tillman, what a hero. You want to talk about actual heroes?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, beyond.
The whole situation. And now I get to meet people that have attended his foundation, right? That he may not be here, but I promise you his spirit is alive. And it's just this gorgeous resonance of truth where you see people rise to challenges, but you don't understand what that means, right? Nobody does. I think like we plant so many seeds every day with basic conversations or doing things for your kids, or we don't know what that's going to grow into. I don't know whether it's going to be a fruit-bearing tree or a shading tree or whatever tree. Maybe it's a chop it down and burn it tree. Who knows? But what we can do together, as if we're talking, sports, philosophy, spirit, journalism, there has to be this consistent resonance of truth where hey, if a baseball player isn't pitching good, we all know it. Okay,
right.
If a football player isn't hitting hard, we all know it. If a wrestler isn't pinning, we all know it. But when a politician isn't getting the thing we need, right?
Yeah.
We don't know it. And I think that's the fallacy of philosophy today's day and age is we have to treat politicians and our representatives just like we would do our sports guys. Like, hey guys,
like your stats blow, dude.
Dan Crenshaw, you become a multimillionaire in a short period of time, and you're in this overseeing committee guy. Like, I love talking about politics because go back to the sports, right? We can't bullshit each other. When you go, hey, dude, I didn't see you sign a contract for 10, 15 years for that millions of dollars that you got. But if a kid that, comes out of whatever school in the nation, we know, oh, he was awesome in high school. He was great in college. He was really shitty at math, but he was a great 3-point shooter. We know all this stuff about these kids. And then we put them in a position where if they make a mistake, it's the end of their career, right?
Right.
If it's drinking, if it's drugs, oh my God, when cannabis came out, Ricky Williams, right? Like,
yeah.
All of that situation with Ricky came out and he's going to survive. He did his business. He did a lot of great things, but in his sportsman thing, when you look at it, it was tainted because of what? People's belief systems of something that now we're finding out. Junior Seau, if he would have smoked joints, would probably still be alive. Okay.
Yeah, that's the crazy part, just the whole idea of the villainization of cannabis to the research into it and kind of understanding like the whole CTE, that's terrifying stuff. And just to even think about what happens to these guys' brains, which we never even thought about it before, right? We never even thought like, hey, they're getting knocked around a lot. We thought about it with boxers, but like with football players, it was kind of just, it wasn't talked about, you know, kind of going back to what we were saying in the beginning, like these honest conversations, like if these guys could just talk about it and could just have a smoke without Roger Goodell getting on his high horse about whatever. I shouldn't say too much about the high mighty leader of the evil empire, but but you know, I mean, but that's
okay.
the
Me and him
thing.
will smoke a blunt together. We'll turn him around.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. No, he's probably already smoking is the thing, but I mean, then that's they got to like take that villainization out, and I think it is. I think it's kind of on its way because even though it's been legalized in a lot of places, it's not the whole like, you know, downfall of society, like they said. I'm not sure it's like, you know, necessarily outwardly improved the smell of a lot of cities, but I mean, honestly, the whole idea of alcohol being like so much safer than that. I mean, I just feel like they're kind of very equal to each other as far as like stigma that can be put on them. But people who say, well, I drink and I binge drink, but like cannabis is so bad for you, you're just kind of like,
really? Can we just get back to that whole like, I don't care if you drink and you shouldn't care if I do whatever I need?
Yes. Let's get back to the whole
medically speaking, having a couple drinks is actually more beneficial to reduce your stress than taking Klonopin. Okay. It's better than Xanax. It's better than all these hardcore drugs that once you start taking, you're hooked because it changes your chemistry in your brain. People go, no, go do some research, dog.
Oh my gosh. For my last semester before I graduated undergrad at Kent State, and I was about to get my degree. And I was so stressed. I had like all of these projects coming to fruition at once. And I went to the doctor and like, she's like, your blood pressure is like way up and you're only like, you know, 21, like what's going on? You know, I'm just like, my God, I've got all this stuff going on. And no, I had never heard of this before, but she was like, you know what, just for 2 weeks, just for the last 2 weeks of school, I'm going to give you Paxil. And I think it's an SSRI. I'd have to double check on that, but it was one of the early antidepressants. And I told her, I'm not depressed. And she's like, no, it's just going to help slow things down for you. And actually, I will say it was like effective in that, you know, like it quieted that monkey brain, like, oh my God, we're so busy. Oh my God, we're going to fail at everything all at once, all the time, you know? And I was able to kind of push through. But what they don't tell you is when you try to get off, you can't just stop taking it. And I just realized then with the effect it had on me, how unhealthy that 2 weeks was for me, because I had like a flip out when I tried to get off of it. And then all of a sudden, like my emotions weren't stable. And I called the doctor like, oh yeah, you're supposed to taper off. You're supposed to take half for a week and then a quarter for a week. And now I'm on the thing for 2 months when it was just supposed to be 2 weeks. They're not honest about how,
yeah, worse than drug dealers.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I was so betrayed, you know?
My pot dealer is way more honest about, hey, dog, like, hey, this is Maui Wowie. This is Pineapple Express. Right?
And then to tie into what you're saying about the villainization, you know, looking back on it, I should have been like my fellow classmates, just smoking a bowl and just getting through it. But I was like, oh, I don't want to do weed. Oh my gosh. I didn't smoke. I did not smoke for the first time until I was graduated from college. And that's kind of crazy, right? Because like I was like, oh, I don't want to screw up my future. You know, I want to study it. I want to push and all of that. And here I am on fucking antidepressants. You know, I could have just smoked a bowl. So that's kind of like the whole thing where I was like, I felt kind of duped and I felt like, wait, now I got to be on this for 2 months because I can't come off of it without it hijacking my brain. Like I just felt like
actually kill you. Like that's they don't tell you. Like people tell, oh, well, if you're drinking, you need to titrate off drinking. We know that because you get the withdrawals and all the toxic
delirium
stuff.
Tremens, yeah.
And then but when you look at it and you go, but wait a minute, if I get off of this pain medication or gabapentin or Neurontin, because we don't even use pain medications anymore. We use weird different chemicals. But for SSRIs, right, you're talking about a whole hijacking of your system that gave you a plateau, but in practice it was never intended to be utilized in the way that we do it. It was supposed to be very scrutinized, and the fact that you're even that young, it's statistically proven that you have increased suicidality
Yeah.
ideation or actions. So this is where I go, like in the further point. Imagine now you're not in college, right? You're coming home from, you know, Iraq or whatever you just did, Afghanistan, and
Yep.
you can't be honest, but you're like, hey doc, I'm not sleeping, and that's code for motherfucker, I'm depressed and I'm drinking all the goddamn motherfucking time, right?
Yeah.
And you go, okay, hey dog, look, hey, let's go talk to the doc. Doc is, here's a prescription, Wellbutrin. Okay, Wellbutrin, you start it, cool, you get sleep for the first week. Oh my god, it was amazing. I haven't slept in fucking years like this. All right, that second, third week. All right, well, hey, now I just kind of feel bland, right? And then that
Yes.
third, fourth
Yes.
week, that sixth week, right? That first month, that third month, you're like, wait a minute. When I was on that stuff for 3 months, that was the only time I ever had this thought. It's not a thought. I have to do it. I have to kill myself, right?
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
20 something, 25, 26 around that time frame. And it really hit me hard because if we're not having this dynamic of conversation of how practice is occurring, right? We care about LeBron James's practice for his three-pointers or Shaq's, you know, free throws, but we don't care about, you know, Miss such and such doctorate or Mr. Powell over here doctor that's practicing medicine this way, because
Oh,
the
right.
statistic should matter, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't, because the influence, right? And everybody has their opinions of sports megalomaniacs or owners and all the different dynamics. We could look at that, right? I go, in regard to what it is we're currently seeing in the medical field, I would say they're saints. Okay, they are like, oh my god, that righteous woman like your grandmother with the tonic and a cigarette, just trying to chill out. Okay,
Right.
because unless you see it every day, right? You're not going to go to the doctor every day, even if you needed to, because you can't afford it. Nobody can.
Right.
And so
Right.
when you go to a doctor and they're practicing in a certain way, it'd be like walking into a basketball game and all the rules are stacked against the people that are good at basketball, right? Oh, well, you can't be taller than 5'4". What?
Right.
What? Like, why is that a rule? You can't be black. What? I think that was the most racist thing you've ever said. Yeah, but you
Totally.
can't play it. You can't do it. If you are, you just can't do it. And that was the history, but we changed, we adapt. Sports were that way. Medicine kind of hasn't changed in a lot of years. In post-COVID, going back to how amazing COVID was for yoga and the silver lining and, you know, the positivity and the progress, identity of in-home care services, delivery. I've been homebound since 2013. It was absolute shit until COVID. COVID was amazing for us because now we can make phone calls and people would show up to the door or they do a video conference. And I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm a human being again.
Yeah.
After COVID, the problem is that people assume that, oh, you were just that way because of COVID. I'm like, no, I've been that way since 2013, dog. Like, I don't understand why is this news to you? You're supposed to read that medical record.
Well, you know, and kind of a tangent here about that too, though, with COVID, you
Yeah.
know, Zoom, I remember before COVID hit, and like I didn't even know what Zoom was. Like Skype was the way to get on video chat,
Yeah,
or
Skype.
FaceTime was the way. And then now, if you look at the way Zoom is, like I have pretty much everything I do is on Zoom anymore, you know, and that was super, like the connection that it enabled in a sense. Like I speak to my nieces and nephews primarily on Zoom these days. And I even said to my sister, who, you know, she had the latest infant to join the brood, and the infant's in her arms, and she's on Zoom, and I'm like up in the lens, and I'm like, "Hello, baby, hello," and the baby's like laughing at me. I'm like, "How good has Zoom gotten? You know, how good has Zoom gotten?" And it's because of COVID and how it had to be more efficient. It had to be better because, again, we were stuck with Skype and FaceTime. And I'm sorry, they weren't great. They were okay. But now, and then I think Zoom, then to StreamYard and these programs that we use to do things like we're in the same room, you know, that was a huge benefit. And then you talk about connection being so important to avoid all these mental health issues, so you don't have to go see a doctor to begin with, because they're not going to sit there and try to diagnose you. I mean, I'm not even saying that the doctor who suggested Paxil was like a bad person or anything. I was just saying that, you know, the benefit is what's looked at and none of the other stuff, you know, like it's kind of like this works for this.
Yep.
And that's all I'm going to study about it.
It's a very
You know?
limited. So I'm going to say this. They're not bad. They're evil by definition. Okay. They're not intelligent enough to know what they're doing is causing harm. The
Right.
very betrayal of the oath. They are ignorant to it. And I go on to another tangent of amathea, where it's a chosen ignorance. It's a chosen idiocy. It's a, well, we know better. how do you know better if you're fucking up this bad? Like,
Right.
can we, hey, team, for suicide awareness, we have not gotten into the Super Bowl for 30 years. We've spent $4 trillion in the VA, and we can't even say we got a Super Bowl. Like, if we were a football team, we didn't even get like into the playoffs. We're not even close
Right.
to it.
Right.
So when people go like, Joey, why do you care about this? Why do you care about that? Why do you talk about this stuff? I go, because by definition, most evildoers do not know what they are doing is evil or negative or malicious. Okay. They think they're doing the right thing. Ask me how I know, because let me tell you about this little guy. Like these two little guys that in Iraq, they strap bombs to their bodies and they try to blow people up. Why? Because their religious leader told them to do that. So they thought, they're serving their God, they're serving their dad or mom or their religious leaders. But what it actually was just this really vile, evil person convincing an unintelligent, an uneducated, ignorant individual and manipulated him to blowing himself up. Which, here's the saddest part: he didn't get any of us. He didn't get all the guys that he was trying to get out. Well, a lot of the times this situation that I'm talking about occurs, the target doesn't even make it to the individual doesn't even make it to the intended target.
Right.
Because the manufacturing of whatever they put on themselves is not good. So they take a couple steps, then kaplooey. And it's like, wow, that was a waste of life, guys. Can we just maybe next time, get them closer so we could at least say, oh no, that was too close. But no, it was the worst situations, because when you think of evil, right, you go, well, there's no way, Joey, doctors are out there doing good. I'm like, for who? It would be like saying, a ref that just makes absolutely horrendous calls isn't in the mafia. Okay. We know that they are. We know that they've already been called out on every different sports organization.
Oh my
goodness, now you have you have it like, well, wait a minute, guys. I'm not saying it's WWE level, rigging here, but let's just be honest. In a high tension game, it could be one or two calls that change the whole dynamic of it. At least a point spread, that's historically proven. Yeah. So why aren't we being this critical of the very people that are giving our children, like you were at that age, pills that could literally destroy your life, right? Or why is it under the guise of assisting or health or wellness, instead of they could have gone say, hey, I don't know if you heard of this fire breathing technique. Jill just taught me this. I don't know if I did it right, but hey, that felt way better.
I'll give you a couple more classes, Joey.
That feels way better than taking a couple pills that are going to make me feel crazy in a couple months, right?
Yeah. And it's kind of like, you don't necessarily, I think there's a willful ignorance too, especially, and that's in every profession. I think doctors are kind of on the front line, so they're a lot of more visible and they affect a lot of people. But like that whole just kind of like, I'm only going to learn up to this point, and I'm just going to stop learning, and it's all good, And I'm sure my doctor's like, oh, it's this amazing miracle drug. It's going to get you through it, and boy, did it ever. Like I said, I mean, it's like, but at the same time, then it's like, oh, by the way.
Yes, you don't get to get off it when you want to.
Yeah.
Like, are you sure this is not crack cocaine? Like, I'm pretty sure we watched that in Dare. You smoke crack once, you are.
They didn't even talk about this stuff in Dare. That's the crazy thing. Like, I was very hyper vigilant about all of these things, but man, they never talked about that. I mean, maybe it wasn't as big of a deal back in the whatever it was that we took Dare, Joey, however long ago it was. But
back in the days, like I remember, like not even pills, like narcotics is a new thing. Like all these pill popping rappers. Okay, this is a new era. The last Brett Favre was the guy that everybody talked about who was hooked on hydrocodone for a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I remember that conversation so much so because the whole community came around him and was like, oh, wow, Brett Favre, he's hooked to pain pills. And it's like, I wonder fucking why. This guy's fucking getting beaten for like, I don't know how many years. He's like CTE more than definitely. But let's put it back to, like you were saying, the practice was, this is what works. And if you're a sportsman and you could perform regardless of your pain, then that's what you're going to do. Right. That's the reason why performance enhancing drugs is so prevalent in sports, because the drive. This is another interesting topic, actually. Performance enhancing drugs. Sports and military. They're the only two groups of people where I'm going to say, yeah, go ahead, do all the performance enhancing things you want within rational practice. Right. Why not? Because when you think about it, this sports person, sure, it's pressure, it's a game, it's, I'm not going to ever minimize an event, whether it be football, golf, a tournament, whatever, wrestle, whatever you're doing. basketball, right? But when you pivot to the military situation of the house, like your pilots, right? If you're not dialed the fuck in, and
Oh
if
my
you're
goodness,
if you're
yeah.
not on the top of your game 100% of the time, you can't do that. Like just you can't do it.
I think it's because it's a slippery slope. I think if we could create like certain things like, okay, these things are acceptable and these aren't, because
Yeah.
I when I was at USC, we talked a lot about performance enhancing drugs, and I was of the same mind. I was kind of like, why the hell do we give a shit, you know? And then just kind of going into the science of how some of these and let's just talk aside from the the physical
Mm.
negative aspects of it. Let's talk also about the social pressures, like Lance Armstrong.
Yep.
And I mean, I actually don't hate him. I know that's a hot take, but he's also a bully, and I just know who he is. I guess like I find him entertaining, but I would never like date or hang out with him, kind of thing. But he was very much the king of pressuring his whole entire team to do it. And I mean, it kind of got everybody into a mindset of, you know, hive mind. Well, we must do what we're being told, and then had, you know, health issues as a result. So I think, you know, it's if you have like a category of games where everyone's just allowed to do it and it's all out in the open, that's one thing. But like, not everybody, you know, his teammate Frankie, he didn't want to do it. And his wife still holds a grudge against Lance Armstrong because of it. But, you know, not everybody wants to alter themselves in sometimes an irreversible way. So
Yep.
it's a slippery slope. I think, yeah, if we were able to find performance enhancing drugs that were completely, you know, mostly safe, since I guess you can't say anything's 100% right. But I mean, just like any other medication, I think if it developed to that point, then I would 100% agree that you know, why not? You know,
Yeah.
especially with a pilot. But again, don't they have things that they could turn to technically that are kind of on the cusp to help with their attention, but not go the full route of like, say, hormone therapy, like a lot of
Yeah.
these other guys do, or blood doping? You know, if
Yeah,
the pilots were
there's
blood doping.
peptides.
Yeah.
There's peptides, there's blood doping, like there's even the hyperbaric chamber, I want to say, increases your erythropoietin. Okay, this is your red blood cell fucking generating sauce. Okay, when you want a lot of it, right? And this is the reason why people blood dope, is because you either have to be at a high altitude or a hyperbaric chamber, or you blood dope, right? And the coolest part about what we're talking about is it's naturopathic. It's still enhancing, just as effective as some chemicals. But then when you look at the peptides, there's a lot of interesting peptide conversations, like NAD, IB75, whatever, 567, I can't remember, IBC something. And you got this whole stack now. And I go, hey guys, you're a dude. You're just a regular dude. You're going to the gym. All right. You and your wife, you're married. I get it. You want to be in shape, right? Another gentleman I was talking to the other week, Tony, he does TV stuff. He's really pushing get blokes, right? You know, the peptides. And I'm all about it. Like if you have a deficiency, or if you want to have a goal, right? And the goal is very focused, then yeah, you know, I don't think medical limitations should be between the doctor and the patient. Willing to determine the risks themselves and have those conversations. It shouldn't be an external administrator being like, well, we could only charge him $250 a month if we do that. Well, we get $1,000 if he's in a wheelchair every month, so let's keep him in the wheelchair, right? And this is how they think. So this is the worst part, is when you go, well, is blood doping, is sports things, is PEDs bad? We're not really talking about anything. We're talking about the philosophy of trying to perform, period, right? So that's kind of the scariest part. Like if we're a high school kid and you want to become the next LeBron James, you will definitely heavily consider PEDs. Why? Because that's the truth of the matter. It's too prevalent. You can't not get away with it. It's kind of like talking about cannabis, right? Post head injury, we're learning that cannabis head inhalation, it improves the whole functionability of that reduction of inflammation of the brain, and it increases a neuropathic redevelopment. Same thing with mushrooms, shrooms, actual psychedelic mushrooms. Okay. Now, there's the rishis and the lion's manes and all this different stuff. But if we're talking about literally making a change, right? Not theoretically, not, hey, this is this guy's seminar he's going into, this is that webinar this guy's going to, and then once in a while we get a change in medical practices. Once in a while we get a breakthrough in sports development where, it's a hyperbaric chamber. We don't need to inject needles into our flesh. Okay. Like, just get a tube, get a couple guys, you guys can cycle through your teams, right? Well, I don't want to do that. It's risky too. It's like, yeah, everything's risky. You're playing a sport. Motherfucker, you lifted 600 pounds. That's risky. Your colon could have prolapsed.
Oh, I think of that all the time. When I think about that kind of weight, I'm like, oh,
That's
oh Lord. And don't drop those weights, please. There's toes that are always close by. Like, oh Lord, no.
But when you look at it, so when your journalistic brain is looking at all this stuff, right? How do you then come to a determination of what's relevant to bring to, I would say, a producer or a director, or, you know, the guys that are going to get the story? I don't even know what that's called.
How do you determine what the storyline is?
Yeah.
I think, you know, a lot of producers who work in sports are very human interest based, right? I think whatever twings at them and whatever, because like I was saying before, a lot of the people who work in sports journalism have that story of it touching their heart. So they're there for a very honest reason. And so whenever they go and they talk to people, I hope I'm answering your question, that whenever they go and they talk and they cover these sports and they cover these things that are happening, the thing that makes them moved, the thing that would inspire them as a sports fan or as just a human interest in general type of angle, that's how they end up figuring out what they're going to say. And especially with like performance enhancing drugs, going back to that for a second, with the way that it's not so much that we're worried about the adults, but we're worried about the kids, right? We're worried about the varsity blues, like the shooting the cortisone into the knee and the, you know, when you're too young, we're more worried about that kind of stuff. Like those stories that affect everybody or could affect everybody, that's how they determine what they're going to cover and what they're going to say and what they're going to bring to the forefront, right? So, and they spend a lot of time, and I have a lot of respect for producers as a result of this. They're immersed in whatever the story is. So from the time they decide they're going to go and they're going to cover an athlete or they're going to cover a game or whatever, they are so locked in to all of the surrounding events leading up to it that they're able to kind of distill what the most important of everything that they've witnessed is. And especially as a person that's such a big fan of it. And I think that's true of directors too. You know, when you're a director, you're like all about this thing that brought you here, you know, that you're a fan as well. And what do you want to highlight? What do you want to promote from a visual level or from whatever else you're working with this producer? So it's two people in tandem bringing this story to the forefront. And I think they're drawing on their own kind of what's important to them as a sports fan. And most sports fans can relate to one another. And that's the beauty of a lot of these sports stories, going back to the universality, the universal nature of it, is that it affects, it translates to so many people from so many walks of life. So I think that's how they determine what they're going to talk about. They feel it and they're so knowledgeable of it. And then, you know, the director is kind of like the person that's like, hey, okay, so this is what the important story is. Well, here's how, you know, I would want to see it as a fan, and knows how to put it out there for everybody. Yeah. So they're normal people, I think, is the answer to that question. They're normal people who have the curiosity. And, you know, oh my gosh, it's so funny. Like anytime I watch a sporting event, like I'll even say it out loud. I'll be like, how did he practice for this? And then they'll say, let's go and see a video of how he's prepared for this, you know? So it's kind of like we all as journalists have the same kind of like, what would I want to know? What would I want to hear? What would I want to, you know, what's the most important thing here? And they're led by their own feelings, you know,
that's
their
awesome.
own humanity. Yeah.
That pull, that natural affinity, right? Like you're talking about, the magnetism of what sports is. Because when you think about it, right, it's this experience that we're capturing. And this is what I love about journalism, right? Period. Not just, you know, sports journalism or sports, but journalism. You're capturing something that is different and it's not normally discussed, but you have to present it in a way where like you said, you distill it into a digestible, discernible amount. And then it alludes to the immediate question. Well, how did he prepare for this shit? Yeah. Well, let me show you. It's like, what? Like you were talking about the Special Olympics. One of my favorite movies is The Ringer. Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Special Olympics, a couple of my buddies are in the Special Olympics. Those legless fucks, I love them. They're great kids. Some of them are armless guys, but hey, they put out their best effort. And I go, look, anytime somebody's getting something going in life and it's experience and it's truth and it's something, it could be a bobsled, it could be a golf tournament, it could be that. When you're talking about sharing though with people, it's very difficult to get, let's say, an uninterested person. If I try to get my wife to watch this show with us talking about sports, okay, she would be like, no, okay, unless it's about the Witcher or some other book that she can read. She just boop, and I go,
Oh, God bless her, though.
That's your thing. And I love her to death for it. But I go, if you could just, like the beginning of the story, like we were talking about everybody that's doing stuff like this lately. If we were to get people just kind of, oh, yeah, sports people are regular people. Yeah. Directors are regular. Have you ever noticed that we all bleed the same blood and we all got white meat underneath the skin? Okay.
Oh, put our pants on with like 1 foot at a time kind of thing. Yeah. We all do that.
Exactly. Like we all stretch and take deep breaths in yoga and fart a lot. Like, I mean,
you know what else somebody said to me? One of my colleagues once said, because I was doing research for my my grad school thesis on heroes, and I said, why do you think we all get so into sports? Like, there are people that show up in negative 20-degree weather with painted chests, and it's not just the booze keeping them warm. It's the passion and it's the camaraderie. Like, why do we do that? And she was so brilliant when she said, it's a safe thing to care about. Sports are a safe thing to care about. And it's something that we can easily care about and connect with somebody else. I mean, whenever I see somebody with like a Trojan shirt on and I'm not in LA, I'm like, oh yeah. Or like Ohio State Buckeyes. I'm like, where's that person? Chill. I want to go have a beer with them. Yeah. There's just this instant connection that happens as a result of it. And it is a very safe thing to care about. It's like, you're not over there like hoping like this is a battle and somebody I know is involved in war and I care and their stakes are so high. I mean, yeah, there are some dudes who treat like if their team loses the Super Bowl, they're going to be depressed for a few days. But at the end of the day, it's still a very safe thing to care about. And you will rebound when your team loses. I know, because when the Indians lost the World Series to Chicago in 2016, and it was such a crap down your leg moment, I didn't get over that for a day myself. But I mean,
but you're right. The way that you say it is perfect. It's something safe to care about. And I love it because this is what I mean by when I say we should talk about politics the way that we talk about sports. It's not to be more like, what's the word, vile or angry or mean or hey, Eagles fans and Raiders fans, nobody gets along. Okay, there's certain people in certain groups that fans like they got a jail right underneath their stadium. I think somebody told me that a while ago in Philadelphia. And I'm like, yeah, let me get this straight. So it's okay, your team wins, you riot, flip shit, and light it on fire. Yeah. Your team loses, you flip shit, you light it on fire. Yeah. Okay. How is this tolerable? But our society goes, yeah, it's okay. So if me and you though, and I'm going to say the hot ticket item, if me and you brought up Border Patrol or ICE right now, everybody that has something bias or conception or other either way, other than it just being a topic of conversation, it would be just, you can't. No, we don't know. It's too, look what's happening. I'm like, yeah, but we should take it the same way that we take exactly what you said. It's somebody losing a Super Bowl. We should.
Right. Oh, I agree 100%. Yeah.
It's really horrible, but we need to now fucking find the solution because the sport guys, they're not over there moperson for like 3 weeks or a time. They're coaches in their ass and going, hey, this is what we didn't do. This is how we improve. I'll see you in the room next week. We're going to watch videos. We're going to do this. We're going to synchronize that. No hitting for 3 weeks. We need a little break, right? The no pads practice, right?
Yeah.
All of this stuff, like you brought up tactical. This is military, right? This is that mentality. This is why I find a lot of military people love sports and sports loves military people, the heroes. The whole aspect of it is you're trying to do your best. But what I notice is that removal of philosophy and application, like we're talking about sports, right, in
Yeah.
other departments of existence, like yoga. We should look at yoga as this amazing thing that we should be able to provide in-home services to disabled veterans all across the globe. Why? Because we brought it up, and it would be cruel for me and you to start a program, and then now everybody's on Zoom going, hey, Jill and Joey's got this little yoga thing, and you guys want to go spread your cheeks and fart? Okay, I'll spread my cheeks and fart. Right. And it's on your Zoom. You don't got to leave your house. Right. But
Yeah.
it improves that quality of life. It improves that Kundalini, like we were talking about, like the releasing. And
Yeah.
before you know it, our resonance frequencies are, hey, that really sucked. Okay. It really sucked that this happened, but we're going to improve on this, this, and this. And this is how we're going to do it. And if you
Yeah.
take it like football, you go, well, this is how we move. This is how they move. And this is how they move. This is how they move. A lot of the time, we're talking about political agendas that are confronting a societal issue with the only intention is to look good enough to get reelected.
Right.
So it would be like LeBron James, like holding a basketball all day long, just going like, see that? It's a basketball. Really good at it. And never taking a shot. And then everybody going like, yeah, LeBron James, he's the best basketball player ever. Why? Because he dresses the part, he looks the part, but nobody would believe that until he starts taking shots, right?
Yeah.
I find
Yeah.
the same thing in entertainment, right? I love how you said it. I hate it. I hate it. Because it's just not, everybody's so fake. And it's just like, guys, you don't have to be fake. You're a cool kid. You don't got to be whatever your agent said you got to be because it's trendy this week. It's like, do you? It's just, I
And
find
there's
it to
so
be that.
much cover up and so much dishonesty in the entertainment industry. And I mean, not to crap on my entertainment brethren, because I mean, obviously this isn't true about everybody, but just in general, with all the secrets that have come out over the years too, of just like, oh, well, because we're a star, we keep this under wraps, or, other people are suffering as a result of us enabling, this guy for years and years and years just because he can act. What is that? Everybody, you can get a new actor tomorrow to be a star. Like these guys are like, a dime a dozen, and you're going to protect, a lot of people who are doing harm. And I mean that, the last time we saw something like that in sports was Jerry Sandusky and that whole, we don't even have to go down that rabbit hole, but I'm just saying, like, it's more common in entertainment, I feel like, as far as the cover up,
Well, I mean, look at what we talk about is predominantly the reason why entertainment does the way it does is because they have contracts. Okay. There's obligated performance agreements, right? And those
Right.
contracts are why you hear about the same people over and over and over again. I call it the Disney, what did I call it? The Disney. God, what is the thing where you have a bunch of people in a bucket or like a stable? There we go. The Disney stable. Okay.
Yeah.
If you look at how their business model is, you groom young children into the position you push them into. And that it's kind of like in the military. You start with a young kid, right? You can get them very young and they're very malleable, right? And you could teach them, hey, this is what you can get away with. This is what you can't get away with. And I've seen it where time over not, the military covers up just as bad as the entertainment companies do. And I'm going to put it out there. I know exactly how they do it and why, because it's the same consultancy groups. Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
remarkable how an entertainment company is consulting on the cover up, or at least the cleaning up of the fire Palisades. Why
Yeah,
is
oh.
an entertainment company being hired for PR to sweep this whole thing underneath? Well, because they're good at it. All right. And
Yeah.
as a consultant, that's really what I love doing as a consultant in entertainment, where I'm telling people don't be fake. Okay. The internet is forever. Okay. Life, believe it or not, is forever. And when you die, you're going to answer to something bigger than yourself or anything we can catch you with here. So
Yep.
that thing you think you're getting away with, honey, you're not. So
Yeah.
no matter what, if you're out in this environment, like I feel so bad for girls, especially young ladies who think, well, I got to do an OnlyFans. I'm
No,
like, well,
I know. Me
you really
too.
don't.
Oh.
You really don't. You could do a YouTube.
I mean, if
and
that's
talk
your
about
jam, cool,
chemistry.
but not to make everybody else happy, though.
Yeah,
Or
but
God
you know-
forbid for affirmation.
Back in the day, all right, when Playboy was Playboy, and it was more of a gentleman's magazine, right? And I mean it. Yes, there was nudity, but it was a gentleman's magazine. I loved the old Playboys, right? It had
The
comedy.
interviews were good. And people don't believe you when you say that, but
Yes.
they were. They were very
fire.
good interviews. Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and it came from an era where it was so taboo, right? The art of pornography, so to speak, right? But it wasn't just that. It was, look at how they're illuminating beauty. Look at how they're discussing humor. Look at how they're discussing politics.
Style. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
of this stuff that happened because we pushed the limits, right? And I noticed that entertainment is kind of taking it back to algorithms and basic practices where unless the algorithm says so, we won't invest in this film. And I go, but we're missing out in things like The Goonies. All right, we're missing out
Oh, I
in
know the classics.
the cult classics that nobody wanted to go watch in theater because they weren't primed for it. Like Idiocracy is a great movie.
Oh my goodness. I could go on all day about that movie.
Yes, and it's so pertinent right now because
Yes.
when you think about it, we have this evolutionary compulsion called art. Okay,
Yeah.
The Dream of Grantius is a great book, and if you think about the history of what the philosophy of life and death was throughout the performance of that, it was this ultimate realization that you're gonna die, right? And the fake
Yeah.
shit, we all know you're faking it, but
Yeah.
everybody agrees to kind of go with it. Parades, most of the times parades are fake. What I noticed though is that performative piece used to mean something, right?
Yeah.
It was carried out in a way where the ritual of what we're doing, of course, sports aren't the end all be all, but we respect it enough to give it its place, its value in our society. Sure, is it a bit of the beer and bread circus act? Yeah, the Roman Empire taught us a lot. But what we're really learning is that society desperately wants connection.
Yeah.
I've never met a sports fan that didn't like talking about their sport or their team.
Right. Oh my goodness. Oh my
Never.
goodness. Yeah. Yeah. I mean that's and I think when I was working in broadcast, it was the thing I used to connect with people. I didn't get to talk about it as much because people, we were there to do like the other job. But like, well, boy, when I left work, you'd think I'd be sick of work. But that was the one thing I would keep talking about. How are those Indians?
Yeah.
Those Cleveland Cavaliers. I talked for incessantly after the Cavs won the 2016 championship. I mean, it was just like, yeah, you connected with people. And I was in California living in downtown Los Angeles when that happened. And all these people, the parade, they were all there in Cleveland. And I could go down the street to a bar on 9th Street and walk in, and there'd be somebody that sees my Cleveland Cavaliers shirt, and boy, I have an instant friend, just like that. The connection would be instant. And that's what's so great about California too. I've run into so many other people who are also from Ohio, and you just get that kind of like, wow, what are we doing here in California? Let me talk to you and get your experience of living out here on the West Coast as a Midwesterner, And so, yeah, to your point, sports is a good way to connect. And I think sports, because it's also location based in a lot of cases too, brings with it a whole other way of connecting, right? Because it's like, I'm from Akron, Ohio, go St. Vincent, St. Mary, and people from Akron. I mean, I've met people from actual Akron, Ohio out here where it's like, what a small niche of people we are. And then it's just that connection grows so strong just based on that one fact.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Community. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sense of community. And I noticed that because San Diego. San Diego. San Diego.
I'm relatively new to San Diego. I live up in North County of San Diego, and I've been here since COVID actually. It just kind of worked out.
I'll tell you, we got to work on our teams, okay? Because one, we still don't have the Chargers back. And I thought that was supposed to be temporary. Regardless of, right? I grew up Chargers fan, right? Notre Dame Chargers. And
Ryan Leaf, were you a Ryan Leaf fan back in the day too?
Yeah, I loved the sport, right? I didn't care for his performance. A lot of people's performances for the Chargers, and still to this day, they don't have the team that would be necessary for us to be like, oh, we're gonna go this year, right?
Yeah.
Come on,
yeah,
go hang out with the Browns, okay, guys?
No kidding.
Yeah, and this is the worst part is like if our community used to come together, San Diego used to be a lot tighter. I remember
really?
As a kid. Oh yeah, dude. San Diego, as soon as you start talking about Chargers or walk around about Chargers, it's the same thing. It used to be a lot tighter. But the spread of what happened to San Diego started when the teams didn't want to be here anymore. So the Padres got their stadium, but the Chargers didn't get their thing. They used to share it, right? I used to go watch the Padres and the Chargers. I think it was like Candlestick or whatever, Jack Murphy. I can't remember the fucking stadium. Right there. You know what I'm talking about. People, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And the biggest part about it was, being a kid, coming from Central California, visiting my mom and living here for a little bit. And my stepdad would take me to the games, or my mom would take me to the games, or my dad would take me to the A's games or the Giants games, right? And I loved it because when I went to the Giants games, right, this was Bonds, but he's Barry, right? Yeah, the Bonds.
Barry Bonds,
right?
yeah.
Smackaroni and cheese in it. Fucking like 5 or 6 a goddamn game, bro. I didn't care about PEDs. Nobody cared. But the splash zone, right? You see the big Coca-Cola bottle, and then the splash zone, and the boats coming out, and they're just like, "Oh, I'm trying to get this ball." I'm like, "Dude, this is fucking chaos." This is organized chaos. I loved it. And when you think about sports teams, that gives a society event. Okay, the Padres really, really do bring people together, and I love that about the Padres. The stadium, they're very, very much involved with the community and developing resources, and having people there not just for the ball games. There's a lot of events that are going out through there, but to have a football team, right? We don't have a basketball team, but we really need both. We need a basketball team and a football team because, like you said, it brings people together. And I think San Diego desperately needs that thing that is their own. Don't get me wrong. LA's got all the things that they got, but you don't need
why do they need two football teams though?
I think they're just being dicks to San Diego, being like, hey, we got two. We got two of everything. We got two basketball. We got two football. Like they got two baseball. They got two of everything. I think they got two hockey.
I didn't think they'd have the market for it. Apparently they do if they're still there. I didn't understand that at all. Like it was kind of just like, I mean, LA, they have two basketball teams. They've got plenty of college ball. Yeah. And actually, honestly, that's the thing. College ball.
Yeah, the college ball is good. So USC, going back to USC, right?
Yeah.
Very competitive team. I got a buddy that's going to film school, I believe, out of in USC, right? My other buddies, huge fans for the football team. They go and watch the games all the time. And I'm like, look, when you're in Central California, in Lemoore, that's where I'm from, there's not really much going on. So sports keeps your kids, it keeps your family, it keeps your head clear, it keeps you involved. Because the moment you don't, there's so much bullshit out there. Like in Fresno, I could talk to you about how good Fresno is, and I could talk to you about how bad Fresno is. But it depends on your personal experience, right? You talk about, the opportunities in golf throughout California. It's just nobody talks about it. Why not? Because nobody does. We got TaylorMade, we got Titleist. The main manufacturers are right here in Carlsbad.
Yeah.
Okay. We have all these resources in California, but I don't see the passion the way that it used to be, where sports, sure, I love the whole pomp and circumstance and the performance. I really think we need to get back to that community sense, right? Where your team brought the community together. It wasn't like, oh, we got a couple good players. Basketball did this perfectly, if you remember that movie.
Yes. Oh, of course. Classic.
They described it perfectly. Okay, what is the interest of a sports team if it's not the community? It's just purely financial. So if it's purely financial, now we could see why, these things aren't growing out. San Diego in itself super flaky because let's be honest, dude, everybody just wants to sit at home and relax. It's good weather. You might go to the beach every now and again. You do that for the first few years you live in San Diego, and then you realize, dude, I don't want to fucking deal with traffic. There's a whole bunch of tourists coming in and be like, oh my God, Mary, did you see the seal? Like, hey, you're getting too close. Your kid shouldn't be that close to. Oh my God! And then that's actual video of the kid getting bit by a fucking seal because they didn't. Yeah, and then it's this gorgeous. Okay, so science and technology. You look at San Diego. There's so much beautiful things. Military-wise, there's so much beautiful opportunities. I don't understand it. Why hasn't General Dynamics, General Atomic, Boeing, or whoever else is here, just going like, hey guys, let's just start a football team. Let's just call it the San Diego Limp Dick fucking Sailors. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
The LDSs.
The LDSs.
That's going to be horrible. And I'm guarantee Mormon's going to hate me for that. The Limp Dick Sailors, the LDSs, they're going to come out and hit ya. Yeah. Come to this
you're right. You're right. Yeah. And that's a great question because it's not like they couldn't afford at least a small team.
Minor league. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing out here. The Bananas, I hear they're fucking amazing. The I don't know which league there are. The baseball team that dances and does all the music and stuff, and it's a complete performance show, but they still play baseball. I don't know the name of their league, but that, like just having more of that. Monster trucks, okay? Having events where, yes, after COVID, and this is what I do love entertainment about. After COVID, we need things back. We need our festivals back. San Diego
Yes.
Comic-Con took a dive, okay?
Oh,
Ugh,
I
it's
know.
horrible.
I
When you look at
know.
the comedy scene in San Diego, there's so much dynamic here that people don't realize who's out here doing the things. Music is gorgeous out here, but LA still has that dominant grip on stuff because it's the same construct. Oh, Hollywood, you don't want to go there. I used to hang out there a lot. It was not fun. The
That's a
one
good
thing,
point.
yeah,
That's a good point.
they had a couple good pizza places like that were open at 2, 3 in the morning after a good rock show or two. Okay, that was about it. You hit up Sunset, you could go all the way down, do whatever, have a good night. Plenty of clubs, the Venom, Poison Pit, whatever was there. A lot of amazing people doing a lot of great stuff. But the funnest thing that I remember is going to the house parties. Okay, going to the house parties,
Yeah.
and you walk in, all right. And this is the reason why my friends never believed me. I'd look just the way I'm looking like now, right? But with board shorts and flip-flops when I was still in the military. I couldn't do drugs, okay? But I could be around them, okay?
Yeah.
So we would go in the house and like there's just people. Holy fuck, okay. What's up, dog? What's up, dude? Hey, what's up, dude? What's up, dog? Oh, shit. What the fuck am I doing here? And then before you're like 3 beers deep talking to people about their how they came out to California and doing all their dreams and everything and big stuff, and I'm like, all right, cool, hey, I'm hungry, is there anything open? You go get a piece, a slice or whatever, and then that'd be the day. Good times were always that where you're meeting new people. You're kind of flabbergasted by it because you never would put yourself in that room before, right? And let's be honest, if somebody told me certain people were at these houses or at these parties, I'd be like, oh, I don't know if I could go. And that's true. And it's that hero worship that kind of like you were talking about when you have a sense of respect of the effort and the consistency
and the accomplishment.
Accomplishment, but it comes back to that humanality of it. Where do you see yourselves? And if we can't pick our heads up out of our little ostrich hole, it's not malicious that anybody's telling you to do it. It's saying, hey, I think 2026, we really got to do it. And we got to do it in a way where we're proud of our community, right? We're proud of our history.
Yeah.
We come from a foundation of balance, especially in yoga. And if nothing else we do is sit down and have more open-hearted, open-minded, open conversations, I do believe profoundly in the sense of solutions, because any sports team, okay, that the champion story, that the prodigal son, that guy that just man, he was down his knee injury, oh no, right? And then before you know it, he's back, he's in the gym throwing up 500 pounds, like throwing the footballs and making the touchdowns, and you're like, geez, but that's humans. This is why we're here. To rise
or
to the
Nancy
challenge.
Kerrigan at the 1994 Olympics, baby. You're gonna try to take my knee out? Yeah, GFY. I'm gonna put all y'all to shame.
Dude, it's just all of the stories of historical, I want to say, prevalence of sports, right? I find it fun. I find it entertaining. I find it empowering. I think that's the reason why, as a veteran, I look forward to, partnering with as many sports persons and personalities that say, hey, getting a couple broke dick guys like me, the broke dick sailors. Oh, I'm sorry, limp dick sailors. That's what it was. All right. When we're out, we're going about, we got our LDS t-shirts and hats, it's good to meet people that care, because a lot of these gentlemen in these sports and ladies that are owners, nobody's talking about that either, but shit, met some ladies, they're owners, like you're like, oh,
like
sorry,
the Cameron Diaz in Any Given Sunday, like that was her toughest role, I think. She's like, I'm gonna own this team. Yeah, that's another story.
And that's so beautiful to do, because you're taking something that is normally a man thing, which is okay, right? It's okay. But you're stepping into it boldly as yourself. And I love seeing women do that, right? I tell my wife this every time. She goes, oh, but you don't like it when they're in these movies. I go, no. I'm very specific. I don't like it when something was this, and then they forced this story into being.
Forcing, that's
Yeah.
different, because like when I was first getting into sports broadcasting, like Leslie Visser was like the only woman who was reporting on football, and she was on the sidelines for Monday Night Football. And then all of a sudden, in the early aughts, the early 2000s, all of a sudden women were getting into it, and they were more face front in the on the networks. But I was still, when I was covering football in Ohio as like a 22-year-old, and I'd show up to these press boxes with these like long grizzled veteran reporters, and I walk in and they're like, "Hey honey, do you know what a first down is?" And I thought it was funny. I didn't get all bent out of shape, because I understood, like, I'm not going to go in here and change an entire profession to where my presence here is going to have to be completely just like, oh, no big deal. Like, I understood the reality. And it wasn't that women weren't, welcome. It was, they were getting, it was a newer thing, and it was starting to happen and whatever. And, people made their jokes, but like, it wasn't something I forced. It was kind of where I found my own place, but I wasn't trying to come in and be the, how dare you speak to me that way? I have football knowledge, like it was like, never, I wasn't forcing it. I was just kind of like, okay, well, this is the scenario and this is the joke. And I thought it was funny. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what a first down is. Read my article tomorrow. You jerk, But like, I didn't force it. I didn't force it.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing, is like understanding this is everybody. Okay. I don't care who you are, what you are. When you force things, people feel it, and it's not good. All right. Like when we do the whole, let's stand and salute our veterans in attendance. I'm like, don't do that. I don't like it. One, because you're putting a target on my family. Okay. I don't know who's in this stadium. Right. Terrorism doesn't start and stop where you think it starts and stops.
Right.
Okay, second place, no, because if you wanted to recognize me, you would have gave me a bonus, like front row, like ticket. Come on, like, show me how much you care with your dollars. I'm saying it because I love how the dynamic of we appreciate, right? I could say I appreciate women in sports. I appreciate women in this, but let's be honest, if I don't advocate or assist or lift up women in it, my appreciation is as valuable as a fart. Okay. Now that's the same kind of consideration that I see veterans, and the veterans both ways. The guys that are up here, the celebrity veterans, everybody knows who you are. And instead of lifting people up, you guys are just fighting over this, like, whatever construct of romanticized philosophical things are what it means to serve in the military. And it's usually a specialized community, and you got to go, oh, that's cute. And you guys weren't ever supposed to actually talk about existing. So why are you guys so famous? So, and this is where I go, like, hey, in sports, we know that the coaches have scouts. Okay. Duh. We know that the coaches are trying their best to read into what the other team's doing, right? Literal espionage tactics and whatnot, literal, like, fucking laser microphones. That's the reason why everybody walks around like this.
Oh, I know. It's great, isn't it?
It's like, wait a minute. You guys take sports so serious that lip readers are a concern. It's like, yes. Like, okay. So why aren't we taking that elevated awareness and applying it to our society, the dynamic of outcomes, the actual tangible outcomes for women, not just be elevated in sports? Like, no, like, hey, if you're not ready to get elevated, don't. Like, you're not going to handle that stress. It's like seeing Macaulay Culkin's situation, right? You have a lot of success, and then you mismanage it. You misinterpret, what it was made you successful. And you become these individuals, like you were talking about in entertainment world, that people kind of turn the other way because of your misbehavior. And I go, that's the exact thing that you're supposed to confront. And if that person can't tolerate you confronting them, then they don't want to be held accountable. That's different than them being famous, or them being this, or being amazing, or even being a billionaire. I know a lot of billionaires. The best thing you could ever do to them is tell them exactly where their respect starts and stops. And if it's not mutual, right? If you're not tolerating me as a human being, I don't have to tolerate you. I don't care what your money can do for you, because when you're this close to a person, these things could do stuff to you that your money can't, right? No matter where you're at in life. If you like growing up in the 80s and 90s, dude, you say the wrong thing to the wrong kid, you're getting punched in the mouth. Okay, like
Exactly. Yeah.
you're getting.
Oh yeah.
Hey, some of the people, like we brought up on the internet, they act as if they've never been around people that punch them in their mouth. Okay.
Oh, you couldn't say it any better. It's so true. It's like sometimes you just have to get punched in the mouth. I'm sorry, it's a hot take, but sometimes you got to do it, and then you know how to, move forward in life.
Yep.
And it's not such high stakes next time you do something stupid, or you'll know not to do something
Can you
stupid.
imagine? We have like an official puncher of the mouther for like politicians. Like they just say dumb shit and then, oh, shit. All right, you know what's gonna happen. Yeah. All right.
And, too, going back to your whole forcing comment, this is always something that bothered me. Like, if you're gonna force someone, or like for example, the women in sports thing, and you're putting women in these positions just to either say you did or because they say they want to, but there's no merit behind it, then women like me who have worked our butt off to show that we should be here, they make us look bad because they either are put in situations that aren't appropriate because they're forcing it, or someone else is forcing it and saying, oh, we need a woman there. And then it just kind of, everybody backslides. If you just open the door a little bit here and there and you grow gradually and organically, then it just kind of becomes part of the background, and it's not so women in sports. It's just people in sports, and it's not such a thing. We don't call so much, attention to, and I'm talking more about the broadcasting end than the competing, but when you're in any sort of male dominated or certain group dominated area, rather than kind of forcing these pieces together, organically, more people who are just attracted to it because they want to be in it and want to do it. I never went into sports because I'm a woman in sports. I went into sports because my dad was always, as I was growing up, those were the key moments in our family. I mean, the biggest drama my family had was my mom's side were Pittsburgh Steelers fans and my dad's side were Cleveland Browns fans. And people are like, how do you make that work? And the answer is you don't. They got divorced. But my point is that I understand, that's why I got into sports, because it was such it affected me, in a certain way. But I think that I was lucky in the sense that I was coming up into sports when it was kind of once in a while, you'd run into somebody and you're kind of like, why did you want to go into this business? And then, but it was also so nice to have the door opened in a way that wasn't before. So, I mean, I guess there's kind of there's a balance to it, right? Where you're you don't want to force things, but then you want to leave the door open for them to grow more organically in a certain direction too, to where it's more open and, it's more reflective of the people who watch it or participate in it,
It speaks to truths, that I think that's like we were talking about earlier, and this would be a great to wrap it up on type of point, is it speaks to the truths of what it means to be alive, to work hard, to serve God, to do your best.
Yes.
I've never met a person in sports that doesn't believe in God or a God.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy?
Very fascinating.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I never met anybody
it.
that's been in combat that doesn't accept a God. Okay. I'm not saying you have to accept the same one. And in combat, I don't mean, oh, you served in the military. No, my dog. Like the people that, okay.
Where the rubber meets the road, right?
Yeah. And the same thing with the sports people. I've never met anybody in any type of sport that doesn't believe in a higher power or God. And I find that fascinating because I think of society in the tense, in the expanse of where we're at and how young we are as a nation. Yeah, it's 250. We're here, baby.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
What we can say is that's very young. And the last ones that came to this point, they didn't survive because of the exact same reasons that we're talking about now. I bring up Amathea, an idiot, right? Idiot and Amathea is a Greek terminology defining that you're an uninformed or ignorant individual. That's what an idiot is. And you're performing as a citizen, which you're not. You can't be a citizen if you're an idiot. Even if you can vote, okay?
Yeah,
That's kind of you can't wear the hat unless you do the dance, right? So it's kind of like, all right. And the same thing for the dynamic of sports, where you can't be good at a sport no matter how many trophies you win. This was one of the worst things that I saw in sports was, well, just give everybody a trophy. It's
I hear you. Oh my goodness, yes.
Trophies were never the point. That would have done us
no favors, Joey. Yeah. That would have done us no favors as kids to be just, because then what? Where's the measuring stick?
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
It was a fucking point. Hey, that guy sucks, and he got a fucking trophy bigger than mine. Well, it's the Spirit Award. So you're saying he's
What's
more
that?
spiritual than me, huh, motherfucker? Huh? Like,
Like,
I
okay.
work my ass off. I pray to my God. I put in my reps and sets, and you're telling me this motherfucker didn't even do it half. And it turns into, like you were saying, a meritocracy of
Mhm.
measurement, where
Right.
where do we start and stop a society that is kind of appealing to, of course, the empathetic tones of what it means, but like I go back to the sense of insidiousness and evil, okay, and this is the reason why I say it this way, knows the Bible better than anybody reading it on both sides, okay.
Mhm. Yep.
The evil one actually knows the Bible better than you or me, because he was around when God said them things, okay.
Mhm.
And if
Yep.
we want to pretend for a moment that that same great being that we're doing whatever we're doing to, or asking or begging for, that something else isn't looking at you going, I know what team he's on. I know what team
Yeah.
she's on. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this and do that and do that. Yeah, God gives you challenges, but you then have to start understanding, when do those things start actually being a front from evil, right?
Right.
That silent moment when a producer says something like, "Do you know what a first down is?" It's like, yeah, here you are. You didn't even let it affect you. You turned the other cheek. Was like, nope, right? Because you grew out of it and you said,
Right.
"Hey, I'm here to do this thing. I'm not here to be a woman in sports. I'm not here to
Right.
be I'm here to be in sports. I'm here to be in journalism." And
Right.
that's the reason why I love journalism so much, is because the best journalists are usually the greatest people to just have some coffee with, to sit
Yeah.
down with, have a beer or a joint or a cigarette, or even right now, like this, a podcast with, right? And say, "Hey, no matter what you're doing, I see importance in you. I see importance in your character and who you are and what you're doing. And I think the depths of what you bring to the world isn't just what you perceive it to be." Right? I couldn't know everything, because in the art of creation, the art of coverage, you're not the person that we're shining the camera on, okay? But you are the person that saw the story. And in it,
Right.
I believe that that's kind of the best things to say towards any sports journalists or journalists, or anybody out there striving to be in, either entertainment, journalism. If you want to be an actor, but understand, when you take your hat off, your actor hat, right? You got to put your real hat on, right? You said the first thing you do, when you're in performance or we put our masks on, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
If we know that, then we also have to be able to take it off and realize that core self is so much more deeper, is so much more beautiful. And I'm so humbled by this conversation, because going from learning about what is a blue angel, this or error or that, and I go, yeah, actually it's very confusing, even the corpsman stuff, right? People, what, you were in the Marine Corps but you were in the Navy? No, it's confusing, but it's okay, right? And it's the same thing. If you were to ask me, like, who scored what win, I'd be like, huh? Okay. I remember Michael Jordan did something on the football field.
He
No,
was
dog.
good at something. I don't know, but it was a game that I don't remember though.
Space Jam. I remember Space Jam. Bill Murray.
Oh, Space Jam, another classic. They just don't make them like that anymore,
The reasons, again, I think it's too on the nose. But I think as a society, with people like you, reporting the stories and giving us, the next future generation of whatever yoga instruction we can get, I just find it so empowering. And
Yeah. I'm like, I know where you're going.
I think I got that word. We've said a lot of words today, guys.
We've said a lot of words today. Yeah. Maybe even some like GRE grad level words, Joey. I think we dropped a few of those today too.
Nice. I'm still a GED grad, so I don't.
You know what? They're all accomplishment, It's all accomplishment, all on the line of accomplishment.
Oh. So how do we and our listeners stay in touch with you, Jill, and how do we support you in your mission and message?
I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn right now. To be honest, my other social medias are kind of under construction, but LinkedIn is a really good way to find me. It's just linkedin.com/Jill Marcos and Jill.Marcos. And you can message me there. You can comment on anything there. And I usually get back to you pretty quickly.
Awesome. Any shout outs? Any last words of today?
Any last words of today? Consistency. Just keep showing up. Don't break promises to yourself. Keep showing up, and everything will work out. That's my general advice. And as I've kind of been in my own development of my own career right now and going into the next step, always having faith in yourself and knowing that the right thing is going to come along.